All right. And I've started recording again. This is the Geek Initiative chat. We're talking about LARP, which is live action role playing, and Star Wars tonight. So welcome to the chat. Hey, Dave, is your chat working? All right. I don't see Dave in here yet, but we'll go ahead and get started. I'm just waiting on my other co-host to arrive here. Hey there, Liam. Thank you for joining us. So since Rick is going to be joining us in a second, we'll get started talking about Star Wars. So just the other night, I was here on Blab, and Sid, I'm going to go ahead and let you call in here too. I was chatting on Blab and joined in a chat about Star Wars, and I was like, yes, awesome, we'll talk about Star Wars. And I asked the hosts what they thought about General Leia and what she would be doing in the next movie, and I was just expecting a really cool response about their predictions, and they instead went on a rant about how old she is and that kind of thing. And I was like, really, is this really happening? So then this heroic lady jumped in and defended Leia's honor, and I was very happy about that. But it just kind of surprised me that somebody had been on the chat like that. So yes. So hey, Sid. Hey there, Dave. How are you guys doing?
Decent.
All right. Glad to hear it. So so Star Wars. Let's talk about Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I see Liam was expecting us to talk about Thor. Hey, we could talk about Thor later too. But regarding Star Wars, since that's kind of like super popular topic, what did you guys think of the movie?
It was really good.
Dave, we're still having trouble hearing you, unfortunately. But I was a huge fan of the movie. And hey, spoilers are going to happen in here. I'm just going to say right now. I am a big fan of Leia. I'm a big fan of Han. So while it was sad, I liked that they had their scene. They had that moment. I would have liked more, but I thought it was pretty good overall. I do like Rey. I like all the characters that they introduced, and I gave it a B plus. People were like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you hated it. You gave it a B plus." And it's like, no, a B plus isn't a bad grade, guys. Like it's okay. So that was kind of my feelings on there. Oh, Rick is in here. Okay, there we go. What's a B plus out of 5? So a B plus, I mean, it would be like a 4 out of 5 star, thing. Sid, what did you think out of 5 stars? B plus out of 5?
Sounds funny. B plus out of 5. I'd give
4
it
out
a
of 5?
4 out of 5.
4 out of
Yeah.
5. Yeah, I was a fan. I was happy with what they did with the established characters. I like the new characters. I didn't fall in love with it as much as I have with other movies, but in terms of what I was expecting, it was probably at least as good as I expected. I see Rick is finally on. Rick, to call in, you just want to click on that open seat thing. There you go. All right. And now I'll let Rick on. Hopefully you guys will get too much echo because we're sitting across from each other here. Sort of in the same room. But I thought overall pretty good. I really like what they did with the established characters especially, but it kind of reminded me of the new Jurassic Park movie in a way. Not in a bad way. It was like I expected the nostalgia. I expected some new stuff and some new characters, and I wasn't disappointed with that. It was like pretty close to what I expected, and wasn't disappointed at all. Yes, they spared no expense. Sequel reboots are a trend. Another controversial one that's coming out is the new Ghostbusters movie. A lot of people,
Oh yeah.
yeah, a lot of people are thinking that that one's gonna suck, but I'm gonna go see it. I mean, I was into it, and then they announced that, here comes the Thor reference. Then they announced that Chris Hemsworth was gonna be in it, playing the secretary, and I'm like, well, I'll go see it. I've stuck with him through some good movies and some bad ones, so I'll go ahead and see him in something that I was going to see anyway. So I'm pretty excited about that. We're just trying to get our other co-hosts on here.
Testing. This is working.
So it looks like Rick, you're not on at all. And Dave should be back on here in a second too. I think his computer froze. So yeah, other reboots. What else are you guys looking forward to?
I mean, it's not everything is coming out as a reboot. Can't believe I'm blanking out now. I mean, I guess X-Men Apocalypse.
That's true, yeah. And then there's Batman versus Superman is coming out.
Oh yeah.
That's coming out. What do you think about that? I'm gonna keep quiet for a while about it because I'm much more of a Marvel fan than a DC fan. But what do you think?
Guy, what's his name? Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. He's like seeing him in the preview for that when he sees Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent meeting for the first time, and then he interrupts them the way he does. It was so silly.
Yeah, that clip was funny. So
yeah.
So
I love it. He like claps his hands and he's like, I love bringing people together. Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent. I love it.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, so I liked the preview. I mean, it definitely got me a little bit more interested in the movie. However, I mean, my big problem with it so far is, so DC has Wonder Woman, right? She's not just a popular character, she's a feminist icon, and they introduced her in a movie about two dudes. And I get that, like, she's going to be completely awesome in the movie. I'm sure they'll do a great job, but it's still kind of like just the point of it. Like, she's not even in the title of the movie. So that kind of bugged me a bit.
Can you hear me still? You can't hear me still?
So, yeah, it's a cameo. Devlin's saying that it's a cameo for her own movie because, yeah, she's going to launch off into her own movie from there, which is great. And Marvel does not have any female-led movies yet. They are going to have Captain Marvel, which is really cool. But they pushed it back, which was not cool. Don't know why they haven't done Black Widow. I was at New York Comic-Con. I was at the Women of Marvel panel, which was absolutely fantastic. I love that as a networking opportunity, but also just everything they announced. They announced, I think there's like 17 titles now that women are creating at Marvel. It's completely awesome.
Wow.
And just a whole bunch of new, female characters and reboots and everything like that. But, one of the things with Black Widow, a fan got up, and she was cosplaying, and she got up and she was like, where the hell is our Black Widow movie? And all the panelists were like, right? So they referred her over to the producers and basically were like, talk to them about it, because in terms of the comics, they're kind of like they're already there, they're already on board. But in terms of the movies, not so much, unfortunately. I guess they consider it like a bigger risk. And, Star Wars kind of proved that it could be done. It's interesting because they didn't really promote Star Wars. I think it's like hey, this movie's all about, a female who has force powers. They didn't promote it that way at all. They just kind of were like, it's a Star Wars movie, it's going to be great. And we were like, yeah, of course it will be. And, we went to see it and, ended up loving Rey. I mean, she's pretty cool, so. Yeah, did you guys see the thing about is Rey a Mary Sue character that was going around? People were saying that Rey is basically a Mary Sue. She can just do anything. It felt a little hateful towards the character. Like they were implying that she wasn't very well crafted, and that was a big thing in the last couple of weeks that people were kind of debating.
I don't know. I don't have a comment on that right now. It's too soon to tell. She's about to be trained by Luke, so I don't know why people are saying that.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like if you look at any of the Jedi characters, it's kind of like you could say that about any of them, I guess. I'm actually going to find a post that I wrote. One second here.
Can you hear me?
Here it is. Okay. I actually ended up role-playing a character and was really open-minded about giving her whatever kind of powers she needed and in the Star Wars universe. And, I kind of learned to be a better writer by taking that approach. I found that recently I've been limiting myself. And when I was a young writer, I didn't do that at all because it was kind of like, the imagination is your limit. But now you're, as you get older, you kind of like, you kind of...
Is this working?
Feel confined, I guess, a little bit more as a writer. No, Rick, you're not on yet. Rick is still trying to hop in, but he is not able to do so, I think, on the Chromebook. But yeah, like I learned that, just kind of like removing those limits was really helpful and actually resulted in more character development than if I'd stuck to like some really specific plan. I was just kind of like, I'm just gonna go into this and see what happens. And it was actually going into the other topic of this blab. It was actually a lot like LARP, in that you have your character, you go in, and things are going to affect you, and it's going to develop the character in ways that you could not have imagined. This is going to be old news to a lot of you on here, but I roleplay a character who was originally a fairy princess, and she was modeled after like the Disney princesses, and she talks like this, and she wears a mask, and she's super, she was super bubbly, and she was a fairy, and stuff happened. I went ahead and I decided to PC at the game, so they made her mortal so that I could continue playing the character. So now she's human, and she's gone more in the direction of like, becoming more of like a tougher fighter, more of a warrior. And when I was watching the movie, when I was watching Star Wars, I was like, oh my gosh, General Leia made the journey that Ciara is trying to do. She started out as like, I was born into this, life and this occupation, but she also really takes control. She leads, she earns it. So it was really fulfilling for me to see that, because I was like, that's the journey I want my character to take. That's so awesome. And I've been thinking a lot about eventually, Devlin's going to get sad. I've been thinking a lot about, eventually retiring the character and what that could mean for her. And one of the avenues for her retirement is to have her be more of that like Secretary of State kind of figure that hopefully would be able to come in and help the PCs out and point them in the right direction and advise them. So that's a possibility. The other possibility is just to let her die, because the characters get 7 lives at Seventh Kingdom, and she's lost 2, both for her king. But basically, if they're for a kingdom and king, she's gonna she'll accept the loss of life. So we'll see where that takes us. So, Dave, I'm not sure what else to tell you. Let's see. The only other thing I can suggest is messing with your microphone settings and trying to remember where I did that on Blab before. Oh, if you go to the very top of your browser tab, there should be this little like camera thing. On Chrome, it's over by the little favorite star. And if you click on that, it will let you switch your microphone settings, and you might need to do that to make it work. Rick, that might help you too. There we go. So, Dave is calling in again. There we go. So, yeah, so those are kind of my big observations, and that's actually still not working, Dave. Still can't hear you. I swear I just heard something. There we go. That might work. Try the headphones. So that was kind of like my big crossover point, I guess, for Star Wars and LARP. You know, for me personally, how Leia went from princess to general, and I've noticed LARP being a character that's going through that transition. Some people will still always think of her as the fairy princess that they met years ago. You know, they refuse to think of her as like this tough battle general. And I noticed that that's one thing they said in Star Wars. They were like, oh yeah, she'll always be a princess. But the way they said it was not insulting. It was like super respectful, and it was like she'll kind of always command that royalty and that authority in that way. It's just that she's something else now as well. And I'm like, yeah, if I could kind of roll into that as my character, I think I could own it that way. So we'll see. But I think some people are just still attached to like what I call classic Ciara, because she used to wear like all pink and like pastel colors, and now she's like ferocious and, you know, kills people and stuff. And she's like pretty vicious, and people don't all like it. So Sid, have you done any LARPing at all?
No, actually. But I've done tabletop role playing, but not a full on LARP.
Awesome. So yeah, when I do tabletop role playing, sometimes I get really into it because I like to play bards. So if I play a bard, I will try to actually like sing or
Behold, I live.
It works, Dave. KungFuDave is online and it works. Yay! Welcome to the party.
Certainly took long enough.
Yes.
God damn it. The wonders of modern technology. I get this brand new, brilliant headset, and I just tried and true.
Yep, the old school headphones. You know what? A lot of pros use Blab, like professional digital marketers and stuff. And I'm sure some of these people have like tons of money, but they like mostly use those kind of headphones. There aren't a lot of them like on the gaming headphones, and I guess maybe that's why.
Yeah, probably. Truth be told, I got the headphones as a Christmas gift, and I thought, man, will those make me look fancy? And then I tried them, and it's like, man, do these things fail to work in any sensible manner?
Yeah, the ones I'm wearing right now are too big. Rick has the other pair on, but I guess the Chromebook just doesn't do video very well. So unfortunately, he's not able to hop on. We need to get another computer soon. But I was able to finally get a MacBook Air, which I need for work, and I absolutely love it. But it doesn't really game. You know, like I wanted to play like Star Wars: The Old Republic or like Civilization. I think I can get Civ for it, but like the copy that I already bought doesn't work. It doesn't even have like a CD drive, so.
Well, my current computer is a brilliant war machine. I wish I could show you this device. It is not merely a computer. It is the most powerful battle station in this galaxy. Or at least, you know, maybe this mile. I don't know how many great computer guys there are around here, because I know there are desktops that are better, but I just want to hug this amazing war machine except that it's all sharp and full of swords, so it would kill me.
Yeah, yeah. I feel that way about my computer, although the battery has started to fail. But I'm told that it's still under Apple Care, so that I can just take it in. So that's kind of my plan for tomorrow night, is to head into Apple Care and see if they can fix this thing. But yeah,
Nice.
So Dave, LARPing, what have you been doing? Where have you been going?
Oh, all right. So, I ended up never making it back to Seventh Kingdom, which saddens me. But timing, distance,
Yeah,
money,
yeah.
and truth be told, I wasn't particularly, I don't enjoy fantasy LARPs as much these days.
Hmm.
It may sound silly, but it's nice to be able to LARP as someone who can draw a gun and cause problems.
Yes.
There's a certain satisfaction from that. So the LARP I've been going to recently is called Oblivion. It's this...
Which I've been wanting to go to, but haven't made it to yet.
Oh, it's a lot of fun. It's a post-apocalyptic superhero with pulp and fantasy elements LARP, which I know is a bit of a mouthful, with a bit of cyberpunk and space adventure thrown in. My very first time there, my retrieval specialist ended up going into outer space and helping the local Guardians of the Galaxy chapter, the Meridian Guards, steal a whole bunch of stuff from an alien facility.
Nice.
So I'm having a lot of fun there. It's nice to be able to draw down and shoot problems. It's nice to be able to be a techie. And in fantasy LARPs, when we get down to it, if you're playing in a fantasy LARP and you're playing a magic class, you're not actually playing a magic class. You're playing a techie. You're playing someone who solves problems with what, in any other name, could just as easily be... And I just lost myself. You get what I'm going at here, right? You're playing you're not playing Gandalf. You're playing he who solves problems with runes and widgets and whatever it is you can throw at it.
Nice. I'm trying to make you a host. Sorry, I'm not zoning out. There we go.
Aha! Brilliant.
Awesome. Now, if my connection drops, it's all on you. You're my only hope.
Do not worry, I shall wield this power with great care.
Excellent. You can also boot trolls. But right now we just have Sid, who is not a troll, but an awesome person.
He
Who's
seems
here to
pretty
talk
cool.
about...
Troll.
You're not a troll. Who can discuss with us Star Wars, LARP, and other role-playing games. I'm sorry, I'm being distracted by my dog here. And I wish Rick could come on, but he's stuck on my old computer, and it doesn't work very well. But yeah, so another way to combine these two topics that has come up a great deal in certain chat groups is, of course, what about having a Star Wars LARP?
Oh man.
Right? And because first of all, Kalamazoo, I think it is, went ahead and kickstarted some lightsaber weapons that would be
Oh yeah, I've
safe.
seen those. They're amazing.
So, I mean, there's a way, but of course there's the almighty copyright issue, and oh, Devlin pops up the link, of course, yes, they're awesome. And where was I going with this? Right, so College of Wizardry LARP, which is the precursor to New World Magischola, the Wizard LARP in the US. College of Wizardry was the first one, and that takes place in Poland in a real castle. And originally they were like pretty much a Harry Potter LARP, and they actually worked with the almighty copyright holders to be able to still run the LARP, but change it enough to make it kind of its own world and to not infringe on the Harry Potter copyright. So there might be a way to kind of run some sort of space knight game where it would be Star Wars, but not. But I don't know. I think it would take something out of the Star Wars mythology to do it that way. What do you guys think?
Hold on a second. I've actually read a little bit of Magischola. Well, I know friends who have pre-regged for it, and Like, one of the things that's interesting about it. Oh, you did?
I'm
Awesome,
going
congrats.
first round. Yes, I'm going to wizard school.
You will probably run into my friend Holly and several others. It's going to be awesome for you.
Excellent.
But the thing with Magiscola is that they're apparently only running, and tell me if I've got this wrong, 4 sessions a year so far.
Yeah, I
But
think so.
each of those 4 sessions has sold out 4 times.
Yeah, they ran a limited amount, and people were able to like buy into them. So some people are actually going more than once, which is awesome. But yeah, that's how it's working. So they're doing different sessions.
So how is that going to work, though? Because, hear me out a sec. Generally, one of the big draws of any LARP is the community that forms. You know, the roles that people find for themselves, the way they create their own interdependent ecosystem, for lack of a better phrase.
Right.
If you've got 4 separate sessions, does that mean that there are 4 separate continuities? Does that mean that there are 4 separate schools going on at the same time?
I know it's all the same school. I have a feeling that it's going to run that, like, stuff that happens in session 1 will in some ways affect the next session. Like, I think they're pretty much like one right after each other, so I don't think they can have it completely affect the outcome of the next group. But I'm pretty sure that some of the things that happen in one session will affect the next one.
Well, that sounds like it's going to have a very distinct effect on LARP, the LARP community as a whole, and cohesion. Because how do you juggle that? I mean,
well, I mean, I think since they've made so much money from it, basically the organizers, Ben and Mari, they're both amazing. They can actually take their time to really, fully devote the necessary attention to making it happen. And the world building is cool. They've laid out the groundwork, but basically the world is being built as we, the players, ask questions. So sometimes they'll have answers, but sometimes they're like, fill it in. Like, it's your world too, which is really different than any other LARP that I've ever been a part of. I'm also really looking forward to not only building the world, but stepping into something that's less rules heavy, because I'm used to fantasy boffer campaigns and also tabletop role-playing games where you have tons of rules and ways to resolve conflicts. And, in this particular game, it's rules light. So, you still get to decide like how things affect you and if they do, but it's a lot less rules. So I'm excited about that. And then in terms of community building and relationship building, what they're going to do is like give us a forum and give us an opportunity to connect with each other and build relationships before we go. So the first character surveys just went out. And the way that worked, they just kind of asked you like, what house would you like? What year would you like to be in? That kind of thing. And then basically of all those things, what is the most important? And I had talked to Tina Dagenhart. I'm going to put her website in here. TinaDagenhart.com. I had talked to Tina, who had gone to College of Wizardry, and she explained to me how it works, or how it worked with College of Wizardry. And that is that you got to state your preferences, and then they basically give you a character, and it's first initial, last name, so you can pick the gender of your character. You can kind of like iron out some of those details yourself, and then they work with you. Like you consult with them on what you want for your character. But like if you and I went into the game together and we're like, yeah, we want to be able to play like, I don't know, like cousins in this game or whatever from a magical family, they would like work to make that happen pretty much, which is kind of neat. Hey, there's Rick.
You get a little finagling on the phone, actually.
Nice. Are you guys hearing an echo from us?
Yep.
Oh, that's because we're in the same room. I'm afraid to move my computer because my...
No, I think I'll go upstairs and just have just enough power on my phone to do that.
Okay.
So we're going to wander through the house.
Okay, Rick is going to wander. There is a charger sitting on the nightstand, the one that I used yesterday, if you need a charger, dear. Rick, for those of you who don't know, is my husband. So we're sitting in the same location. He is also a huge Star Wars fan and the person who really got me into LARPing.
And then there's Darth Pooper.
You can't see him. That's our ugly dog. He's trying to show you, but you can't really see him. Our dog named Odin.
To the light, Darth Pooper.
There we go. That's our dog Odin. Dave, you met Odin.
I
He's
did.
terrifying.
I just forgot he was named Odin.
Yep. Yep.
So does he have
hear...
a pooper scooper that never misses named Gungnir?
No, but that's a great idea.
That's certainly accurate.
Rick is the one in charge of the poop scooping, so that's all to him. There we go. So yeah, New World Magiscola. I'm super interested in that game. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to the first session. I posted a link in there in the chat to my interview with Ben and Mari. And also some interesting things have happened concerning the discussion around the game. So when I interviewed them for the Geek Initiative, I asked about it being, really inclusive, because that was kind of like one of their selling points, is that anybody can do this, new LARPer, whatever. However you identify, the game world itself is, inclusive. And within the interview, Mari identified the game as a queer feminist LARP. So it's like written through that lens. So in the game world, the issues that we face in this world, lack of equality, don't necessarily exist in their culture. So I'm like working at thinking about what it would be like for me to live in that kind of world, because I don't in real life. And people got upset and they dropped out. A couple of people actually dropped out of the game because they didn't like the level of inclusion that they offered.
Well, I'm going to play devil's advocate for a moment, purely because this is an interesting story building exercise.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There's always, in pretty much every setting, some kind of disagreement between one group or another. That's a basic conceit of history. There are always one group of people that doesn't like another group of people because of how they look, how they move, whatever. That's just how most worlds work, and it's how our world has worked, whether we like it or not. Mm-hmm. So from a story building perspective, there's only one other series in history that I can think of off the top of my head where they took that as a plot thread. And that was Star Trek The Next Generation.
Right, yeah.
Where they basically declared that humanity and the other races in the Federation had long since gotten past their disagreements and their ancient prejudices. And to be fair, when the original creator of Star Trek, whose name randomly escapes me,
Gene Roddenberry. When
Gene Roddenberry was still alive, he pushed for that very hard. And it drove the writers insane. There's actually a really good documentary on Netflix about it. I think it's called Crisis on the Bridge. Crisis on the Bridge? Bridge in Chaos.
That's what it's called.
Yeah, if someone can find a link for me and put it on there, just IMDb or something, that'd be fantastic. But one of the big problems for these writers was, how do you write a plot where there aren't any inter-character conflicts? And they found a whole lot of ways to try and fake it. But it wasn't until after Gene Roddenberry died and they were allowed to have these conflicts again that things got really interesting. This was also around the time that Commander Riker grew his beard.
Right.
Which led to the phrase that we now know of as growing the beard, when a series gets beyond its initial bullshit and becomes amazing. So as a writer, on one hand, as a player, I love everything I hear about that, because holy shit, doesn't matter who I am, what I am, I will be accepted. But as a writer, it's like, no matter who I am or what I am, I'm accepted.
In the game, there's
this has suddenly become
rival
less believable, and it starts to be a question of where's the conflict. And
Well, in
without
the game, there's
conflict,
a rival school that does not necessarily subscribe to the same beliefs. So I would almost say it's like the Star Trek The Next Generation episode Angel One, which is one of my favorites, where the Enterprise actually encounters a matriarchy, and the inhabitants of Angel One believe that women are superior to men. And obviously, Riker has a very fun time on this planet because he's Riker. But
Riker.
they do explore that issue a lot, and they do what Star Trek often does, which is take our norm and flip it to make you see how absolutely freaking ridiculous it is. So in this instance, they took, the normal construct of the patriarchy in our society, and they flipped it, and you see how different it is when you see how all the women on the show are like, man, we're better than you. And the other piece of media that really illustrates that, and I forget what it was, like an ad for or whatever, but they show this little boy going through his day where like all of the, like amazing doctors and role models he sees are all only women. And like at the end of the thing, you're like, oh my gosh, there's no one for him to relate to. And then he looks up at this wall, and there's a whole wall of all the presidents of the United States, and they're all women, and you just see him being really sad. And it's kind of like that reversal thing where you don't see how, that can really affect and hurt people until you kind of like see it in action. So that's how Star Trek, I think, dealt with it pretty well. And I've seen in the lore for New World Magic School how there's a rival school that necessarily doesn't have those same beliefs. So I'm sure they're going to play with that within the plot, and they might write more in too. Go ahead, Rick.
Well, I mean, to counter David's point, like I understand that with a lack of group dynamic and conflict within the existing Federation, because of the lack of conflict there, doesn't necessarily make it hard for the writers, because they just have to develop an outside source for conflict. Like they eventually had the Klingons and the things like that, which would cause that prejudice. I mean, we also saw how Kirk acted towards the Klingons, even well past the peace treaties and stuff like that, where it was at a point where they could even frame him for assassination. So I mean, the conflict is still there. It's just not within the dichotomy of the central grouping.
Yeah, that's definitely a way to handle it, to kind of have an outside group do that. And I've seen them do that in LARPs before, because they don't necessarily want to make the town, well, sometimes they might want to make the town have conflict or hate each other, but other times they want the town to like unite against, whatever the big bad enemy is. So that's always kind of, a pretty standard plot device they can use.
It's
It
true.
also depends on the LARP.
Yeah.
Actually, one of my favorite, and once again, I'm going back to Star Trek here because it's perfect for this discussion. I'm reminded of Deep Space Nine. And there's an episode, I forget the name of it, where Benjamin Sisko, commander, he might have been captain at this point, is talking to Major Kira, the Bajoran liaison to the station. And he goes on this wonderful rant where he explains, on Earth, back in the main portion of the Federation, all of these problems have been solved. Mm-hmm. They don't get it. Meanwhile, we're on the frontier, where everything is crap. Nothing is solved. And I have to explain to these people that all the problems they're not used to are very real here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's also like a typical thing that's done in LARPs. Like, you're on the frontier, you're breaking new ground, and you're dealing with these issues that other people, in more civilized places may or may not have to work with.
And what I especially like for this comparison is because these are Federation officers in this perfect society dealing with all this crap. So, all right, yeah, I'm turned around on this. I see a way for with enough external threats, you can definitely make this interesting. Although I'm still not sold on the community cohesion due to the way these sessions are split up. I think that's going to be a real problem.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how it'll work, and that would be a pretty cool question to ask, like if one session affects the other. And I know some people that are playing multiple sessions want to play the same character throughout. Other people are playing completely different characters in each session. So just like any other LARP that has multiple sessions or months in the campaign, you have some people that want to do one thing and some people that want to do the other. So I am curious to see how they're going to deal with that and how that's going to work. And there's also like a couple things they've tossed in there. There was one option where you could buy like a 10-pack of tickets and come in as your own secret society. And Tina's actually in one of those groups. So they get like their own special plot on top of everything else. So who knows how that can kind of shift the plot, depending on what they do or what happens.
Well, for multiple sessions for a player, the easy solution would be they're exchange students if it's a different college.
Right. Yeah, that's possible.
Mm-hmm. Although now I'm wondering how many interesting secret societies are going to show up.
I think only a couple of. I'm going to check the Kickstarter because only as many as they sold, right? They probably limited the amount that were available. I'm going to check it right now. Oh, I can't see.
I would like to form the fabled and secret order of Boot to the Head.
I'm really curious to see what they kind of look like in game, these secret societies. I went ahead and asked for, so I was talking to Tina, who had been to College of Wizardry, and she advised not getting completely attached to like a character concept because some of it's randomized, which is not what I'm used to. I'm used to going into a game with my sheet already written out and my costuming and everything kind of like matching that. So I tried to take her advice. I really like playing loyal characters, and I got really attached to a specific house and class, for lack of a better word, which is the Marshal. And marshals are kind of like aurors are in Harry Potter. They kind of enforce things. And I think it would be really cool for me to play an enforcer character in this kind of environment where everybody's equal and they're all about justice. And you can see they've had some conflict in this house's history about what exactly that means. And I really want to explore that topic. And I really also want to play a character whose power, I'm not going to say it's not questioned, but it's not questioned based on her gender. So I'm really excited to explore that and see how that works. So when I filled out my initial character survey, I was like, I'd love to, be in this house and to be a marshal, which kind of goes along with that house because of these reasons. And everything else, I sort of left it up in the air. Like, I'm not really particular about where she's from in this magical world. They are making it very North American centered. So, because it does take place in North America. So a lot of cultures and history of North America is reflected in the lore, which is really cool. Because, we play a lot of fantasy LARPs here in the US, but, I don't necessarily think of any of the things I've played as American. I mean, I play one character in Mystic Realms sci-fi setting named Liberty, and she kind of embodies some of those ideals, but in a very patrician way. But I can't say I've ever really played a character that's particularly, American, like where that's like a real part of her identity. So I also kind of look forward to exploring what that means.
America,
right?
Yeah, going to save the motherfucking day, yeah.
So yeah, I think it's gonna be really fun. I'm excited about New World Magischola. I'm excited about going to this kind of game for the first time. I'm nervous about the lack of rules. It's almost like when you write Star Trek, because Star Trek is space. There's like so much out there. Star Wars too. There's so much out there. There's so many possibilities that you could like run into or add into the setting because it just could be anything. It's space. It's limitless. But when you're faced with writing in that setting, you're like, oh man, I want to give myself some like rules, some confines. It's almost like as an editor, when I assign people topics, it's like, hey, write about anything versus, hey, could you review maybe one of these 10 comic books, the easiest way to get a submission is to give them a list of comic books I want them to review, not to say, write me something about anything. So even creative minds like that, you know, confinement. And I'm finding that too when I'm thinking about playing that kind of LARP.
Well, Star Wars writing. Sorry, the Star Wars writing is not as limitless as it's written by George Lucas, because his theme was good versus evil, and that's the surrounding point in the Star Wars universe, aside from the fact that, you know, it's always about the Skywalkers. But if you're writing something outside of that scope, you have, in any of the eras, it's always been good versus evil, and the consequences of apathy, I guess, and the biggest form of that would be due to the Galactic Senate. They became so complacent that, and the Jedi as well, they become so complacent on the fact that they're superior and that their way is the right way, and that everybody will just toe the line and eventually see that their way is the only way to go. And then you have that sinister background just growing until it just overwhelms those that were complacent and let it happen.
Yeah. Although that sounds very prequel heavy.
Well, if you go from Knights of the Old Republic, the MMORPG, that same situation was happening even from before the MMO, the Knights of the Old Republic and the the Sith Lords. Like that same instance happened. You know, light side victory. Years later, all the Jedi still disappeared, and the Sith are now taking over. It's just like that. That was a constant theme in the comic books. It was a theme. Legacy series, it was a theme. Like anytime that they got complacent, evil would just return, whether in the form of the Galactic Empire or the Sith Empire, or eventually the Yuuzhan Vong, which all this stuff is now erased anyway. But that's just the central dominating arc of Star Wars.
Let's not get into the elimination of the expanded universe, because that could take us in a whole nother session.
Or Star Trek too. I mean, the new movies.
Star Trek is not the topic of the evening. It should have been Star Wars all along.
We're okay.
Why don't we just bring up the new EU then?
We're okay. We can live with Star Trek for now because it's technically an alternate timeline. If we don't like it, we just go back to the original.
I feel like such a gatekeeping fangirl. I guess this exists. When I think about Star Trek, because I'm like, it's okay, but it's not my thing. Like, I'm such a big fan of the new Thor, and I just think that's how some people feel about it, and that's fine. Like, it's okay, but it's not their thing. It's my thing. And I feel that way about Star Trek. Like, the new stuff is cool.
Well,
it's not me. It's not my Star Trek. It can be your Star Trek. That's fine.
It's not Gene Roddenberry's vision for Star Trek. That's for sure. It's not for the action and explosions and things like that.
Although, to be fair to Gene Roddenberry, I think he would have included a lot more cooler special effects if he could have afforded them. Because they talk all the time about photon torpedo spreads, as these big wide blasts and these phaser banks, and most important of all, wide beam settings on a little hand cannon. So, believe me, I think he would have included it if he could have.
Yep.
Yeah, but I think his stories stood on their own even without the effects. I mean, as a kid watching the modern things that are on TV, I still watch the original 2 seasons of Kirk's voyage, and was still impressed by that puppet looking giant lizard costume guy fighting Kirk with a rock getting beaten over his head. I mean, it wasn't the greatest effects in the world, but the storytelling was awesome, and Star Trek did have the first interracial kiss on TV.
Now, this is hilarious to me because I actually had to design Kirk's character sheet for an anime LARP. Among his abilities, he has the classic shirt item, and once per LARP, he can rip it off and get +1 to all combat skills for the remainder of the fight. It's the little details. I had way too much.
It reminds me of a LARP a long time ago. We had a guy. We had these orc wars, and he would show up half inebriated. He was supposed to be the orc general. Didn't know the rules of the game, but he was fun.
Oh no!
And all of a sudden, the players come at him with all kinds of skills, and they're screaming, like the decapitates, the instant death moves, and he sits there and he's like silent for a second, and then he's just like, ah! Crush, die, and everybody's like, what? And the guy running the game's like, yep, you die. So yeah, it was a funny thing. It just became a running gag in the game, and eventually when players got high enough level, they got the move which negated the last 10 moves or last 10 seconds of any moves called on you. So they made it available for the players all because the guy was a bombastic buffoon, which we all loved.
Nice.
He was just the invader Nib, or what is it? Just Nib the Destroyer, the orc leader.
Nice.
So, what's the most ridiculous thing you guys have ever seen in a LARP or a tabletop game?
Oh God, I've got a story for you guys.
I knew you'd have a story.
Okay,
I'm sure we all have stories.
Most recent Oblivion event. Oh my God. So it started as a normal mod, as normal as one gets. We were going to this group who owned a special van that we knew could take us to zombie apocalypse Washington D.C. You know, we have to go through the countryside, do all that. So a group of people were trying to rob this family. We took care of it, and they have this big tent set up and a bunch of chairs in it, you know, for the van. And so we get in, we start journeying through the back roads. The driver was having all kinds of fun pretending to drive, stopping to take care of zombie hordes that would have been impassable. At one point, he uses an item to call expert knowledge Washington, D.C. traffic. It was crazy. But the point of this story, though, is that if you were around Jersey on Sunday, Saturday night, you know that it was raining like balls. And that was why they had set up the tent for us. They set the tent up for us in case it suddenly started raining cats and dogs, which it did. I think I heard a cat hit the top of the tent, meow loudly, run off. So point is, we're stuck in this monsoon, and we all look at each other and have this idea. I get one of the back legs, everybody else grabs a leg, and the battle tent was born. So we go through the rest of this mod carrying the tent around to stay out of the rain as a group, being post-apocalyptic badasses, and needless to say, battle tent. Please go.
Stories from the old game days. We had an event on Saturday nights we called the Extreme Mod. And this the game was over, and whoever paid a little bit extra money would get this mod that would last from like Saturday night until like 5 in the morning the next day. Like the sun would be coming up. And I don't know if I should go with the egg one or the guy limbless rolling down the hill. Let's go with this was we call it a rollback mod. And we started the fight probably about 11, 12 o'clock at night.
Were you PCing or NPCing?
I've NPC'd my entire life up until like recently. So I was an NPC on this thing, and we're basically circumnavigating this campsite all night long to the point where we go to this one place. It's a beach, and it goes up and down a hill, and the downhill goes back into the main camp. The sun's coming up. I have since severed the limbs of this poor guy, Brody. You know, we'll just call him that. Severed all of his limbs. He had nothing, and the player team was still fighting, and he was like rolling after me, trying to bite me. Of course, LARP.
It's just a flesh wound.
He was just like the Black Knight. He would just roll, and it's like this hill was steep. It was probably 11 or 12-degree incline, and the poor guy was just chasing me down the hill, and I'm like, what? So I ran. I just couldn't handle it. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. We all had the sillies. We've been fighting for hours, and yeah, he's rolling after me on the hill.
Nice. Trying to think about my craziest stories. I don't know. I'm gonna pass. Sid, your craziest LARP or tabletop story?
We have a couple of guys on here that have stories they want to type them out. I'm sure Dan has an idea too.
I was on one tabletop, which was too short-lived, over Roll20. The DM had like, at one point, this was like mini battles. This was like a segment where I guess it was like mini battles, like a specialized type battle. And one of our players had to do like sort of like a concert battle type thing, where he was like, I think it was like playing like an instrumental, pretending to like play instrumental music against the opponent. I can't even remember who the opponent was now. The opponent was like a demon or something, or something evil.
So it was having a rock off with Satan.
Yeah, something like that, and it was like so over the top and ridiculous.
Was it
but it ended up the way it played out, like more entertaining and active than I would have originally thought, because I would have thought like, that sounds like too silly for it to like go on, but it went on for a while, so it ended up being more proactive than you would probably think.
No, I can believe it. Once I worked with a party of bards, and when we discovered the big bad plan, we came together and declared that we were getting the band back together, and we were going on our Saving the World tour.
Nice.
Were you wearing black hats and sunglasses?
That was, in fact, my main character's shtick.
That's great. I'm a really serious role player. I mean, my character's got her ridiculous moments. She started out very, very ridiculous. But I would say most of my moments aren't really silly or funny. They're pretty epic. But I do remember... What?
I got one of you.
All right, go ahead. You tell it.
It was Mr. Ryan of Mystic Realms.
Clan Ryan, yeah.
Where a group had to recover some kind of obsidian shards out of a case.
Oh, yeah.
Or stop them from being hired. And I was me and I forget who my partner was. It was probably
it was you, me, Dan, and Adam, and Brian.
Yeah. So
who
me
everyone
and Adam,
else says is Kane. You
chest.
guys know Kane. Some of you do.
We're pick up the chest to hide this thing away from the play. We're like, oh no, we'll take the chest back to town. Don't you worry. And we go off in the woods and hide. And then you're walking with the NPC guide, and you walk by us, and you look right at us when we're hiding, and you're like, and they didn't notice us, and you're like, what are you doing over there? I'm like, what are you? You're the worst rogue ever.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I didn't know you were trying to hide it.
As a LARPer, I myself, I'm not gonna lie. I consider every character I play to be out of a Terry Pratchett novel.
Nice.
It's just that simple. Case in point, my current LARP character, Critical Stevens.
Nice.
He was born Stephen Krakowski, and the problem was he had a degenerative brain disorder. He was going to be a vegetable by the time he was 14.
Oh my gosh.
So his parents took him to the local mad scientist out in the backwoods of Pensy, which is the post-apocalyptic version of Pennsylvania. And the end result, well, if I put in this nanotech device, it'll regulate all these chemicals and keep him stable. But I'm going to need an AI to do that. Well, I have this old combat system. I'll just tweak the programming a little, set it to be, it'll consider the disease the enemy, see? So it'll fight it to death. Nothing could possibly go wrong with this. So a few years later, it became sentient, and they became the dynamic duo.
Nice.
So occasionally, while doing other things, I will blurt out random statements in my best computer voice.
Oh, and we can't forget Set It Live.
Yes, be advised, we have a badass over here.
Dave, we can't forget Set It Live. So to explain this, Dave and I used to work together at a company that made websites, and the whole goal was to get these websites set live so that we could start like billing the customer. So it was always like, I don't know, what do I do? And the answer would just be set it live, even if the content was maybe not done or not so great, because like that was kind of your goal. And so we went to LARP together, and like the whole time it was like, what could possibly go wrong? Set it live. Set it live.
Oh, good times.
Yep. Yes, finished is better than perfect. Sometimes. I'm actually on a LARP speech. I'm a little nervous about this. My character is going to do a very important speech at the beginning of next event, and I'm terrible at memorizing things. So I'm writing it down, and I'm trying to just use like bullet points to kind of go through things. But there's a high chance that one of the characters, Honora, played by my friend Shahar, is going to interrupt Ciara, my character, and maybe challenge her, call her a fake furball again, call her out. And I'm like, I'm nervous about it, right? Because I'm going to give him this big speech, but I'm ready to just like blow all of my year gifts, all of my like once per period things, and just I'm ready to just destroy. I'm just
going to point out that Swagman Dan in the chat wins because he suggests write talking points on the back of your shield.
That is a great idea. In fact, Dan has put ciphers for songs on the back of his shield and lyrics, stuff like that before. That is a really fantastic idea. I do have a lot of surface area on the back of my shield, so I look forward to doing that. That is a great idea. I could just kind of, it's a little clipboard. I could just look down and be like, oh yes, that's completely what I meant to say. Yes.
That said, my advice to you, Tara. Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry.
We can always take that Make It Live thing and make it part of Crew Honey Badger's theme.
We could. The Honey Badger theme. Set it live.
I don't even know what Crew Honey Badger is, but I love this idea.
It was for the Mystic Realm sci-fi LARP, with my aforementioned character Liberty. She was like she was sort of like Inara, only snootier. And Rick played Captain Caljasto, right?
Captain Calvin Caljasto, greatest gunman in all of space.
Yes,
it was me. The Honey Badger crew just don't give a shit.
Yep. That was great. That was my first sci-fi LARP, and I loved it. It's amazing. I hope we can play more soon.
Hey, come to Oblivion. Have post-apocalyptic sci-fi awesome fun.
I know, I've been wanting to. I love Jamie and Aaron, and I want to come play their games so bad. I got to play at Dreamation last year, and I had a great time. They put a lot of effort into setting up their LARP in the game, and I'm really glad that I ran through it. And I played, I forget what it's called, like the Diplomat Advocate. That's what it's called, the Advocate. and I had a great time, in that system. And I definitely did some things that I don't think they thought anyone was gonna do. Like, I don't care if you're a computer, I'm still gonna try to charm you because I'm actually that amazing. Like,
Nice.
so that's
Actually,
Yeah,
we both played
The,
the same mod. I just played the later version of it. Not later version, the next time they ran it. I think mine was right after yours, or right before? I don't remember. But the consequences of that mod are now playing out, and it's brilliant.
Oh, wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah, we were like in the
Uh,
computer or something when we were at Dreamation. That was pretty neat.
Me and my team are trapped once again in the computer on the subnet, dealing with Lady Death, and my guy's just like, oh god, not this again! Oh yeah, and one of the other bad guys can control my mind at will. This could end poorly.
she's talking about the honey badgers. That's a great story. And we did roll deep. I think I'm frozen.
No, you're not frozen. We hear you.
We can hear you.
We did roll deep, but we were just. I remember our first stint out there in the fight, and we were fighting crocodiles and apes on this crazy intelligent planet. And normally I play a sword and board shield type, so this time I was playing a dual pistol wielding gun. And suddenly the team just all gets behind me and like crowds up on me. Like, I can't move and shoot. What are you doing? I'm not the tank. Ugh.
Oh yeah, I remember that because we're used to you being the tank.
Yeah, I was like, get away from me! I can't move.
Empty drink.
Or the fight scene where I'm like bare knuckling against some dude, and they're like, let Cal have his moment. Let Cal have his moment. I'm like, no, shoot him.
Like Mal's moment where they're like, no, this is the captain's fight. This isn't my fight.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Exactly like that. The whole thing, where all the starship crews are right behind me, watching me bare knuckle this guy, and I'm doing okay because it's me, but still I'm kind of like slacking a little bit. They're like, let him have his moment. I'm like, no, shoot him.
Nice.
No. It was lulz. Yeah, the swag man needs to run another game.
Yeah, I know. I miss that too. Sorry,
Who
I'm
is
multitasking.
Swagman? Sounds like the hippest superhero on the planet.
Seriously. So Sid, if you don't mind, I'm gonna boot you for a few minutes so that Dan can come in and tell us about the game that he's been running. Is that cool?
Yeah, that's fine. Actually, I gotta get some dinner anyway.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much
Yeah,
for hopping in and talking RPGs with us.
Sure thing. Thanks for having this.
Yeah.
Good meeting you.
All right. Take care.
Bye. Okay, Dan, if you want to go ahead and just click on the... Oh, you already got it. He doesn't need instructions. He figured it out. Blab is
He
really
does not need no instructions to know how to rock.
Dan, I don't see you. Where are you? Oh, there you are. Hey, what's
Yeah.
up?
How do I look? I didn't know if I was ready to go live.
Your camera ready, Dan.
I'm ready for my close-up.
Woo!
Yeah. So I got a lot going on as far as the gaming world's going on. You guys are talking about Dreamation, Double Exposure. They've been a hit every year. Faglan's always had an amazing showing. They have a line like out the door to the elevator. You got to like fight through all these guys in armor and shields and swords to get in. Oblivion, they throw the best parties, and they have a very strong social presence at the con. I'm excited to see them as well. But I gotta say, the very best event is going to be the Boffer tournament, and that's where the strong are separated from the weak. And but we're gonna have Mr. Clapper there this year, so who knows what's gonna happen? It's gonna tip the scales. I don't think Kane's gonna be able to sweep through.
Yeah, but you both of you guys know my fighting style, so that could take a while.
We'll just gang up on him. We'll knock him out early in the bracket.
Well, to fill everyone else in, so at Dreamation, which is the convention in North Jersey, which is all about role-playing games, including LARPs, they have a famous Boffer tournament. And so last year, it was the first time I went. Yeah, it's a huge deal. Last year was the first time I went, and didn't know what to think. I didn't enter, but I was there to support Dan and also Kane. Who you'll hear, he's like kind of a legend. He'll never come on here, but like you'll hear all the stories about him. No, he never would. But Kane won the whole thing. He just like
he swept it.
He swept it. He destroyed everyone. It was
like the last 4 fights of the tournament were like me versus him.
Yep. And then they had a free for all where we all hopped in. That was fun too.
It was nice. Awesome. I gotta tell you, there were some people there that I had never seen before that were like 5 to 10 years younger than us, and they looked fit, and we were a little worried.
Yeah, it was.
And they had latex weapons, and we had boffers. Like it was like the deck was stacked against us.
I'll tell you this much. Remember. Go on. Sorry.
Age and treachery will always overcome youth and skill.
And youth and treachery are chased away by an old woman with a broom.
All right, I gotta pack my broom. We'll be set for the con. I've been doing that. Gamers Vault, which is located in Medford, New Jersey, has been like my new lair for gaming. They're running events maybe like 3-4 times a week, even possibly 5 if they get enough attendance. RPG events from Pathfinder to 5e. To Shadowrun, they did a Call of Cthulhu game. I mean, they got it all. Their RPG community is budding because it's definitely a Magic the Gathering store, but it's an old gym. So instead of working out your ass or your abs, come work out your mind and your character, and get some RPGs going in.
Hey Dan, do they have the Fantasy Flight Star Wars games?
I haven't seen wargaming of any kind there. I'm assuming you mean the Flight Path games.
No, they have a Fantasy Flight made a Star Wars RPG.
The D6 system.
I've heard people talking about that game and the Firefly game just at our last session this past
gosh, I need Firefly. I need it.
So I can't personally attest to the quality of either of those games. But I mean, everybody loves the universe, so fuck it. I'd sit a session.
Well, I have
what I will tell you is that you definitely want to do D20 over D6. The D6 Fantasy Flight system is,
not D6. The Fantasy Flight system. The Fantasy Flight system is Edge of the Empire, Force and Destiny, and Age of Rebellion. And I have the starter kit for Edge of the Empire. The dice it's not a numerical system. What it is a narrative system. So if you have dice, it's really hard for me to explain.
All right.
See if I have...
Then I have no idea. I was thinking of West End Games. My bad.
The only thing I care about as far as the system is if it takes more than 10 minutes for me to explain to a new player, then I'm hesitant to bring somebody new into that game. D20 has the luxury of being the most commonly spoken rules language. So I'm not going to try and teach someone Esperanto unless I have to.
Definitely.
The way the Fantasy Flight system, the Fantasy Flight game, the system when you look at it at first, it seems crazy complex. The beginner game actually has a pretty decent adventuring for it, and as you play, you basically hand out like the characters. So it has pre-generated characters. There's like a female bounty hunter, your classic smuggler guy. You have a droid that's a mechanic, and you have a rookie berserker, of course. So you have all these pre-gen characters, and the pre-gen characters as a folder, it tells you all what they do. And as each scene comes up, like the first scene is a cantina, and it says, these are your goals, this is what you want to do. And then as each event happens, when it comes to combat, it says, all right, it already gives you like an initiative
Sounds a lot like 13th Age. With the idea of failing forward, or in this case, getting a triumph even on a failing roll. Or, that sounds really cool. Actually, guys, I need a moment. My graphics card seems to have died and then recovered, so I see you all, your faces on a white background, so I'll be back in just a sec.
Okay, see you in a bit.
Yeah, I mean, now that the holidays are over, I'm up to playing a game, and I'm up to showing games for people. Anybody that wanted to come down to Gamers Vault, or if you wanted to host or something. I mean, once it's safe to go back into Mount Holly.
It is now.
I know the streets are pretty rough.
No, it's cool now. The streets are clean. The streets are clean. Yeah.
All right, good. I don't want to be too specific.
No, you're all set. We're good.
Cool.
Yeah, so I could definitely run it for a 4-man game, because that's all the pre-gens are. And that's a good way to teach the game. Or, people can double up with the same character. I don't care. I just want to see this system in action. So right now I have the Force Destiny working out with the beginner's game is pretty watered down. To get you going, the leveling isn't like raise your level. It's more like on a plane. Like if you ever played Star Wars Galaxy,
the video game.
Yeah. How it had the talent system. Like your character was a class, but you had like 3 talent ranks to go up, and then develop your character with his special moves. But you can also go into other classes and take their talents and their skills. So it's not a linear, definite like raise lower of level. It's more like
Yeah, I'm definitely down to play a game. My February is looking kind of busy. Usually my March is insane, but this year's February for some reason. March is actually not that bad, but for some reason Feb is insane.
Makes sense.
But so in terms of getting back to Star Wars, what is your favorite Star Wars RPG to play? Like video game, tabletop, whatever.
I don't know. I mean, I've had very limited exposure. The original incarnation of the Star Wars RPG, the Jedi class was extremely imbalanced. Like they could heal off like energy attacks, so whenever they got shot with a laser, they could activate a power to be healed. And like blasters were everywhere, so it was like it didn't make any sense.
Was it the West Ends or the D20?
15 years ago.
So that'd be the West End D6 game.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I'm suddenly distracted by comics that Dan posted in the room.
Yeah, I clicked it too.
He posted Thor and Spidey.
How do you spell that? And runes.
Are you excited for the Deadpool movie?
Oh, you have no idea.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen the ads? I love the ad they put out that makes it look like a romance movie.
Yeah.
Or
the rom-com banner is hilarious.
Yeah. or the promo they had for Halloween where Ryan Reynolds is talking to a bunch of kids dressed as X-Men.
Oh, yeah, I didn't see that. That one sounds good.
Oh, it's hilarious. Yes, and everything I've seen about the movie makes me happy. I'm especially amused that they are bringing back Negasonic Teenage Warhead, who never had an actual role in the comics beyond Girl Who Got Fridged. And they're actually having a lot of fun with a character based on the concept of this is a character who would name herself Negasonic Teenage Warhead. And, everything I've seen. Like, we've only seen her do one thing so far. And it's, well, Deadpool and Colossus are fighting. She's just like tweeting. And Deadpool's like, oh, yeah, go ahead, finish your tweet. And then she explodes all over somebody. It's amazing.
I don't know a lot about Deadpool, and not like a favorite character of mine necessarily, but now I'm afraid to say that I am not looking forward to it, because when Guardians of the Galaxy was announced, I remember at 2012 Wizard World Philly, they were really like starting to hype that movie, and they were like targeting it towards like the little kids, and I was like, I'm not gonna like this, but I'll go see it anyway. And of course, Guardians was fantastic, and not only for little kids. They talked a lot about like pelvic sorcery and stuff, and then
you and me, dance off, bro.
Right? Dance up. And then when Jessica Jones came out, I was like, I don't know, I don't really like darker stuff, so I'm probably not going to like it, but I'll give it a try, and yet again, ended up loving it. I'm going to give Daredevil another try.
Just finished Daredevil now.
All right,
Yeah.
when did you stop in Daredevil? That's my important question.
Episode 2, right?
Oh, no one. All right.
No.
I can understand. I can understand, but episode. Can't hear you, man. What was that?
I think it's good episode 4, I think.
Personally, I was sold all the way through, but I can understand because, like, the first episode can be kind of slow. The second episode can be, oh, who am I kidding? I don't get it. Sorry, Tara. I just really liked Daredevil. I got nothing.
I mean, I'm going to give it a try. I want everything connect, so I want to see how it works. And Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. took a while to get into, but, that's a winner.
Oh my God, Deadpool Space Marine. But yeah, I'm easily distracted. Well, what I will tell you about Deadpool is this. I'm going to attempt to sell you now on the Deadpool movie and Deadpool himself. The thing you need to know about Deadpool is that he is a bisexual, leaning toward pansexual. Okay, there's a better way for me to do this. Imagine, if you will, that you have cancer. It's incurable. It's eating away your entire body. You're screwed. Stage 4. There's no getting over this. The government comes to you with a proposal. You're a soldier. They have something that could save you. Are you up for this? And you, of course, say, well, fuck yeah. Not like I've got any other options.
Yeah.
And by the way, this guy has a hell of a sense of humor. Not too important, but I think it's one of the most important aspects of Deadpool. He has one hell of a sense of humor. So he goes into this program, and guess what? It's the Weapon X program. Or Weapon Plus, I forget. Either way, they're trying to design people using Wolverine's DNA. And they managed to give him a healing factor, so cancer's not going to kill him anymore. Hooray!
Yay. Hey, Tina. I was promoting your website earlier. Welcome.
Unfortunately, the problem with this cure is that it makes the cancer into the cure. And so he's in constant pain. He can never die. And the way the cancer has affected his brain makes it so that he constantly hallucinates and believes that he is a comic book character and can break the fourth wall consistently.
The cancer, it's a very interesting point. Cancer, the cells just grow to grow. So when he has these healing property, it sets the cancer to the nth degree. So now those cancer cells aren't dying; they're growing, and like you said, it's a constant war. This balance, it's pretty neat.
And he is hilarious because he is the merc with the mouth, the regenerating degenerate rather. He comes in, he makes ridiculous jokes, he shoots, he scores, he has a great time, and he's basically the comic book embodiment of pure fun mixed with, oh God, when I actually think about my life, it's so absolutely awful. So it's sort of like Squirrel Girl if taken seriously.
Which weirds me out that Squirrel Girl in the comics went on a date with Thor.
That is awesome. When did that happen?
I don't know, but Amy was telling me about it. Our comic book editor, I was like, that happened? And then I was like, but let's be real. If I were like reading Squirrel Girl, I'd be like, okay, I can see why.
Well, Squirrel Girl is
And
amazing.
Squirrel Girl also
Do superheroes have their own Tinder? That's a good question. I think my connection is crappy right now because I'm getting audio only from you guys.
yeah, ours. Yeah, same here.
You know, I want to come up with a funny joke for what you would call superhero Tinder. I got nothing.
We'll wait.
There's something there. If we dig far enough, we can find it.
Mm-hmm.
Masked and undressed.
Wait, what?
It would be some variant of the word masquerade.
Yes. Because the idea is you both stay anonymous because you're superheroes, you keep the mask on, but you're still having a damn good time, if you get what I mean. Masquerade.
Actually, I want to read the Deadpool Spider-Man comic. There's like a scene where they get like both tied up together, and Deadpool's like, seriously, stop wriggling.
Oh, well, I prefer the moment in that comic where Deadpool is hanging onto Spider-Man's back as they're climbing up the wall, and Deadpool goes, "Oh, you have no idea how some fans on the internet would react to this."
Yeah, didn't somebody make a dog walk by them and like get
Yeah, it's
emotion?
a pretty popular meme right
Like
now.
I hadn't heard of that one.
Yeah, they're like two cosplayers. Like one's Spider-Man. They're like, of course, they do the whole like Batman and Robin like change the floor thing, so it looks like they're on a wall, and like Deadpool's on top of Spider-Man or behind him, and then like they're like climbing, and then their dog dressed as Spider-Man like walks up the
That's
wall
awesome.
past them. It's hilarious.
Very awesome. And oh god, this is in the Secret Wars. Oh god, I'm looking at the link he sent, and
I'm trying to find more info. I thought they actually went on a date, but I don't know what that's about. And I was kind of surprised with that. I was like, okay. Because I thought that was going to tie into, like, the current Thor run, in which it's a different Thor.
well, I'm just looking at this, and I love the fact that Squirrel Girl names each of his abs. That's just...
Oh, yeah, of course.
I gotta find this comic now. This is just too funny a concept. Then again, Squirrel Girl interacting with anyone from the main Marvel universe is a hilarious concept.
I'm going to post another link, but beware, because it is Reddit, so.
He beat up Galactus twice. Well, not twice, but...
So,
Some say she's actually the most powerful.
Oh yeah, she is.
Marvel
She
Universe.
has in fact defeated Thanos and had the Watcher there to verify that it happened, which of course was the writer's way of saying, "Fuck you. This is now continuity."
Dan, I don't even know what the swipe means. I obviously don't use Tinder.
Swipe right means you approve. Swipe left means GTFO.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, Rogue is pretty cool, right? Why not?
I don't know. With Thor, swipe right on Rogue.
I think, just to be fair, can you think of anyone who would swipe left on Rogue if they didn't know about the whole "she sucks up your power and your soul if she touches you for too long" thing?
Exactly.
Because she's a looker. This is a commonly known fact.
Mm-hmm.
But is it like movie Rogue or comic Rogue?
Comic Rogue, because movie Rogue, I think, is more Ultimates Rogue, where she does not, well, oh, for fuck's sake, they've switched up her powers and abilities enough times. Because she doesn't have the Miss Marvel set anymore, right?
I don't know, man.
Not
the cartoon and some of the comics used to have the Miss Marvel powers, but the movies most recently don't.
Yeah, in which case, I mean, arg. Continuity. No, I desperately want to have a little gif
There
of
is not
someone flipping a table and just have the word continuity above it.
Thor often flips tables in GIFs. Just saying.
The most guilty of continuity switches, considering how many universes are in DC.
But you said they handle it in Flash, though, right? Like they actually explain the multiverse.
Yeah, they explain the multiverse in the Flash TV series, but it's like, but I think it's more so comic book nerds can be okay with it. Because of course, TV and the movies and all are different than the comics, even in each other.
I mean, I also,
But I
think
they will have a Flash Supergirl crossover.
See, now I need to catch up on Flash because I love Supergirl so much.
I actually haven't seen Supergirl
Girl
anywhere because you can't stream it worth a damn. Huh? Couldn't hear you. I've heard.
Yeah, we definitely like Supergirl. It's really different. I found it really interesting because this one blogger was pitting Jessica Jones against Supergirl and was like, Supergirl sucks compared to Jessica Jones.
Oh yeah, we had articles about that.
I wrote about that, yeah, and then both of the actresses actually talked to each other on Twitter and they supported each other, and it was like, thank you. Like, Woo! The shows are so different. They're not even on the same platform.
Yeah, night and day.
It's like, come on, Netflix and network television. It's like they're not even really competing.
Mm-hmm.
That really bothered me.
Well, Alyssa, I can't say her name for the last name for the life of me. Burgoyce? But yeah, I can't remember. I swear she must have watched Christopher Reeve 100 times, because if you watch the original 1978 Superman and then watch Supergirl or vice versa, her facial expressions when she's playing the human Kara are exactly like Christopher Reeve when he's being the dorky Kent.
Really?
Oh yeah, they're like the same.
We got a side-by-side picture where they look almost exactly alike.
Yeah, the pictures are in the link I just posted, actually. They do look the same. Rick showed me the first Superman movie recently. I'd seen it before, but not since I was 14. And so we watched it again, and I was like, they definitely have a lot of similarities. Like, she looks like she's related to him.
So, quick side question. Am I the only one here who at this point thinks that, the guys running DC TV should replace the guys running DC films? Because I'm really feeling that. And I'm terrified for Batman versus Superman. Because everything that Flash and Arrow have done is amazing. And Man of Steel was a load of garbage. What do?
Yeah, it was all right.
I
thought it was okay.
It was disappointing because the whole the Clark Kent Lois Lane dynamic and how Clark interacts with beings. I think that was a big on their part. I'm going to withhold judgment from this Superman versus Batman thing. I'm very leery of it, but I want to give it a chance only because I like the characters and I want to see something happen.
Yes, most certainly. I desperately, I feel the exact same way, but I'm terrified because you know what kills Man of Steel for me? Pa Kent being like,
that he killed God?
You know what? No. If it was handled well, I could handle that. My issue was Pa Kent going, never reveal your powers. I will show you that is important by walking into a tornado. That is, obviously you should never ever use them. By the way, tornado death. And it's just like, wow, way to completely miss the point of Superman. You want to know the best Superman story that I've seen on screen? One Punch Man.
I've never heard of this one. One Punch Man?
Oh my god. Alright guys, let me give you the quick primer. You can find the entire first season on Hulu. It was a webcomic originally, then it became a manga. And the basic story of One Punch Man is this. He is the superhero who can defeat any problem with one punch. You would think that this is the worst show ever, because what's the point if he can defeat anything with one punch, right?
You think?
But it's incredible. And you know why? Because Superman has the exact same problem. Whether we like it or not, most of Superman's threats are a case of, I'm going to wait and scale up my power until I get the exact amount of power to just knock him out instead of kill him. That is the real problem that Superman has most of the time. How much power do I use to resolve this fight? Meanwhile, yes, Swagman gets it. Swagman, you have nailed it with that one statement there. But the thing about One Punch Man is that it is a character built in the same mold, and they get what makes Superman such a good character. He's likable. You know, he's trying to be a good person.
The thing about Superman, like, I think it's how he also learns how to use his abilities.
Mm.
There's been, of course, many incarnations to him and how he gained ability and how it actually showed, like, how he actually was mentally blocking himself from being
Yes.
that nonsense. An interesting animated movie, like DC's animated movies, are also awesome.
Yes.
I forget the name of this supergroup. They were just trying to replace him with like the guy was like a mental powerhouse.
Oh yeah, I know that one. It was Superman. I forget the exact name of it now. Versus the Elite. The Elite,
yeah. And the how he tricked them into thinking that he actually went berserk and was going to kill them off. Because they were like hanging that one detail that Superman never killed. And then when he ended it, spoiler alert, so if anybody wants to stop listening for 5 seconds before he lobotomized.
Sorry, I couldn't hear anything you said.
Yeah, Rick, you're cutting out a little bit.
Flash you phone, I guess stop the spoiler.
Yeah, Rick is trying to blab from the phone because we're otherwise stuck with a Chromebook that doesn't do things.
Well, actually, though, the point I was getting at with the One Punch Man thing, though, is that Superman as a character and One Punch Man are both trying to do the right thing. They're trying to find that balance. And what I loved about Man of Steel was the idea that Superman could become this character we know and love because he crossed the line, because of how things worked out with Zod. But everything that happened with Pa Kent in that movie just destroyed his arc for me. I think it wasn't Superman because of that. And I didn't see that. I didn't see him.
Also, it goes against what his parents taught him, like in the comic books and the animated series. Mom, Pa, Kent, like were always about like like you have these powers, they're not to show off, but they're to help people.
Yes, and instead they're not to show off, they're to be hidden and never ever to see the light of day. Sorry, go on.
That's like a corruption of what they were teaching. They told him like, yeah, you're not to show off, but you're here for a reason. Like you were sent here for a reason, and that's to help people. And like they didn't say it outward, but they said that you're here for a reason. And it's not just to show off that you kick football or play do your thing awesomely in high school. And plus, they just like to get him to grow up and be responsible with his powers, and it's not hide himself, but show the world that you can be a better person regardless.
Exactly. I desperately wish your mic was working better so I didn't have to work as hard to hear what you were saying, because that was brilliant.
I'm sorry.
Quite all right.
Eventually we'll get another computer. Yay.
The wonders of modern technology, am I right?
So, as far as, on the topic of superheroes, especially since we have the entirety of Oblivion LARP here. Just kidding. It's probably Jamie or Aaron. Hi. um, Superheroes and LARP and playing a superhero in a LARP. Something I have only done like once. Would like to try again. What experience do you guys have LARPing as superheroes? Because the one I did was a Dreamation, and it was a one-shot game. It was called Unheroes, and it was really awesome. What happened was you create your regular persona, and then you're given your superhero persona. And I got to play one whose power was might, which I thought was hilarious when I drew it because I'm like, so I'm Thor, great, of course. And so my character was one of the last ones whose powers appeared because they only appear at like a certain time throughout the game. That way the overpowered characters don't bust in with like super strength, in the first 5 minutes of the game. And so it was game changing when my character, who had wanted to make a difference the whole time, realized her superpowers and just like busted in, with all this might, the super strength. And it's basically, you realize your powers as you go. And it's timed. So like every 15 minutes someone gets a new power and you get to role play around it. It was a really fun game. It was called Unheroes, and if it's a Dreamation again, I'd like to give it a shot again.
That sounds amazing. I'd love to try that.
Yeah, it was really neat.
There's a lot of challenges that inherently present themselves to the LARP medium when you try to tell a heroic story like that, especially in the Northeast in the United States. A lot of your players are going to come from a background of medieval fantasy, post-apocalyptic, where the spotlight is diffused on 100 plus people. And, the optimum way of beating a monster is to surround it and swing your sword till it falls down. So I found that there was a challenge to maintain a culture where our players would say something and like engage in a monster, and the other players would kind of let them fight that monster for a little bit, and then they would swap out, kind of like you would see like in kung fu movies.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You had time to like fight this monster one-on-one, and that's just from the purely combat point of view. As I said in the chat, I mean, we ran at least 6 events a year for like 4+ years. We ran supers events. We ran evil, like villains events. We even ran like an origin story event where there was only one PC and everybody else NPC'd it, and it went really well. I mean, using all we playtested a lot of the monster abilities that we would then use in our medieval fantasy game by allowing all the players to use them unrestricted. But it was nice to have a fluid 3-dimensional system where people could fly at different heights and interact with each other, and there was no pausing or holds or clarifies. It was all fluid and it kept moving the whole time. Having a strong 3-dimensional terrain system really lent yourself to the heroic nature of superhero combat. I mean, we had helicopters with spotlights flying through the air. We had moving trucks and cars jumping from flatbeds. The only other thing that was really an issue was like, what do you do with the bad guys once you beat them down? Because you have all these NPCs that would otherwise just turn to ash or roll back and play another monster. But if Bob the burglar gets nabbed trying to rob the bank by Captain Rick over here, Captain Rick isn't going to want to dust him. You have to wait for the cops to show up. So you have to make sure that when you're writing these encounters that you don't fall into that pit trap, because people that are going to want to play superheroes more than likely are going to want to do the right thing. So if you don't account for that ahead of time, it can be awkward.
Yeah,
and I'm sorry, the last one I'll say to that before I apologize to cut you off, Tara. The last one I'll make is that you can't betray the trust. if you have like local city cops come pick up the bad guys, and they leave the scene, you can't fall into that trap of letting the super big bad guy villain like intercept that prison break or or break them out. At least that event, you know what I mean? Like let it wait till next event. Otherwise, the PCs are no longer going to trust. Hey, these guys obviously can't hold them. They're just going to be stolen as soon as they leave camera. I'm not going to let this NPC go. I'm just going to make him sit next to me for 8 hours until the event's over. You know what I mean?
That's tough.
So
that's
there
tough.
has to be a give and take. Can you do it once a year or once every 2 years or once every 10 events? Yeah. Okay. They break in and they get the bad guys out because that's what happens in every superhero thing. They always get busted out of Arkham. But the same event, like if I fight big badass evil guy and then I beat him down, I capture him, I better not see him the rest of the event.
Although here's a question.
Okay.
So you've got that situation where you don't want them to bust the guy out of Arkham that often, but what do you do when you get that Punisher type superhero who's like, oh, I have the bad guy, boom, let's get tacos.
We had players like that, and they did kill characters. There were rules for coming back from the dead, having this soul, that it is eternal and lives on, but they were for like very limited people, like very select people, like any player character, of course, like any person who's like a hero, so that there wasn't like true death. But I mean, our club comes from a culture where we don't really subscribe to true death. You just got to deal with it in a realistic fashion that doesn't, put all the emphasis on the Punisher. Like, yeah, it's good to have consequences for the action, but then it shouldn't be the effort of 30 to 40 people to solely entertain and punish the Punisher. You know what I mean? Like,
there's I'm sorry, Dan. I just wanted to comment on your group, the Mystic Realms group as a whole. As I was learning more about improv in our theater group, one thing that comes to mind always is yes and when you're dealing with improv, and that should be also in the LARP and the RPG community, because sometimes people see like the GM versus player in that attitude about the winning and losing, but the one comment I have about the Mystic Realm system in the games is there's a lot of the yes and like players can do a lot of things and it changes the culture to something where it makes it different when a person feels like when they throw out something that is being picked up and you run with it, and that yes and culture I think should spread throughout RPG community, whether it's LARP or tabletop, instead of like the DM's like, oh, what's a great trap I can put the players in, they can maybe kill them or not, or the players get well, the DM is always being antagonistic towards us because we don't get to do what we want to do, and sometimes it's just a product of a rule system but the MR society system is very open and very yes and.
yeah, it's not, no, that doesn't work. No, you can't do that. It's how do I say yes? How do we make this work?
Yeah. I think every game should pick that up.
Yeah, it's almost a little bit like improv acting, how you have to do like yes and, which can be a challenge as an actor because, as a role player, your character might not always say yes to things. Like a big part of leadership in LARP, for example, is saying, no, that's not the best thing for the people that I'm representing. But, especially like in Nordic LARP, there's a lot of talk about make a decision that's best for the story, not necessarily best for you or your character. And that's a good point, but I can't always be on board with that, because if I'm heavily immersed and I'm playing Ciara and I'm in my character and someone is like, make this decision that's not necessarily the best for your kingdom, there's just no way that I'm going to say I'm going to completely do something my character would never do and betray my king just to make the story better,
There's
Woo! Betrayal 5, yeah.
a difference between yes and as the player and yes and as the character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like if I'm I said, if I'm on the fence on something, I'll usually take the more unpopular opinion, just because controversy and drama makes for better story. But if my character would do something, I would do it. It's never if I can't make up my mind, then I go the other way.
Oh, I had the worst moment. The worst moment of that this weekend, actually.
What happened?
So we lost the big mod at the very well, not the big. There was sort of like a big mod, a really big mod, and then a mod after that where we were hunting down a zombie commander, and there was this moment we got trashed, we got utterly toasted, and at the very end of it, we're all stumbling around, having just gotten our asses kicked. And the bad guy rolls by in his van full of zombies with the windows down, and he's like, "What now?" And I've got this grenade. And I have two grenades. No, I had one grenade left. And I'm looking at this car, and I pull the pin, and then everybody shouts at me, "Don't, he'll survive it!" And I just stand there holding this grenade, and it's like,
But you pulled out the pin. What happened?
oh no, grenades don't go off if you pull the pin. They go off if the pin has been pulled and the spoon's been pulled back.
Oh,
Which
I
means that
thought
it's
you were
not
gonna
until
like
you throw
explode.
it,
Okay.
unless you're an idiot, that it goes off. So he puts the pin back in, and later, one of the guys takes me aside and he's like, "That would have done it. If you'd thrown that grenade, it would have blown up the van, hit the gas tank, taken out the whole group of them." And I'm just like, oh, why didn't I just do what I wanted to do? So new rule.
Do it, man.
New rule, always throw the grenade.
I love it. That's like the quote of the night.
That is my new rule. Always throw the grenade. That and my phone's going off over there. I'm just going to grab that real quick.
Okay. Bam. It's official. It's in the chat. It's a quote. That's quote of the night. So superhero LARPs. Like I said, I did. I got to try Oblivion up at Dreamation last year. I also got to try on Heroes, which was freaking fantastic. And this year at Dreamation, there is going to be a Shield LARP, like an Agents of Shield LARP, but it's old. It's like right after Peggy Carter founds Shield, so it's like a 50s style Shield game. So I'm pretty excited about it. It's really super popular, so I'm afraid I'm not going to get into it. But
yeah, they did. They had it in previous years, and it always booked up. You gotta get in on it quick.
I'm so nervous because I got screwed.
Find out who ran it last year, and email them. Tell them who you are about your site and what you're all about.
I'm in the
get
Facebook
on the list
group.
before there's a list.
There's a Facebook group, but maybe I'll do that. Get on the list before there's a list.
Get on the list before there's a list.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
They're looking at running more of those LARPs in the area, so I can let them know, like, hey, if you let me in and I write about it, then more people will want to play.
Of course they are. I'm also looking at the winning Powerball.
I'm actually excited about something obtainable. The Calamus Seal lightsabers with sounds and light up. And it makes me really, really want to run a Star Wars LARP. But I don't know of a good system to do that, although I might have to try and get somebody, Dan, to help me write.
Well, you'll get sued. Like, this has come up like 20 times in LARP Haven in the past 2 weeks. So
that said, I do not throw those kinds of grenades. Quick side note.
If you, the way I want to do it, I actually want to do it as a nonprofit and try and see if I can get LucasArts to say, hey, we're not making a profit on it. We'll donate to your favorite charity. If the 501st can do stuff like this, and you have the PH, there should be a way of doing it without like being, stepping on, the almighty mouse's toes.
just reskin it, rename everything, and you're going to be a LARP entertaining 30 people in the Northeast a couple times a year. It's not going to come up. And if you get a cease and desist letter, it's just going to make you even more badass.
I mean, like I said earlier, College of Wizardry, before they were College of Wizardry, well, no, they had that name originally, but they were like the Harry Potter LARP, and then when they talked to legal, like they worked something out, it was okay, but I don't know that it would go over as well with Star Wars, though.
Well, Lucas doesn't have it anymore, so
maybe. I mean, Disney and Marvel are somewhat forgiving, but only to a certain point.
Well, the way they do it, like the 501st and the Jedi groups that are out there, the way they do it, the ruling is that, well, as far as the Stormtroopers go, they can do that. But when it comes to the Jedi, because we have like characters and stuff like that, the rule is that we can't use anything recognized. Like I can't have Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber or his, things that would be recognizable on him. So you can't use any main characters. So that helps deflect a lot if you just stay out of the realm of that.
Yeah, so just kind of avoid the specific characters. I mean, like I had thought about doing something, and this is really relevant to something else that's going on here in or in general in like the nerd community, the LARP community. I'm trying to not laugh at the side conversation. There's a fan effort in the Star Trek world called Axanar, and it's this fan-produced show, and they like crowdfunded a ton of money to make the show, but they're profiting from it. And because they're profiting from it, the rights holders are like, yeah, no. And fans are kind of like, well, they're going to do it better than Star Trek has been doing with the canon Star Trek movies and shows. And they are shutting down, they're trying to shut down Axanar. And there was a big piece about, I forget who wrote it, it was one of my Facebook friends, wrote a piece about Axanar and, why it's ruining this for everyone because, other groups like, what are they called? The 501st, the Stormtroopers, they do stuff for charity and they get like the okay from the rights holder, but Axanar is going for profit. And so now the feeling is like, wait a minute, you guys are going to ruin these fan films and stuff like that for everyone else and fan LARPs and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think the awesomest thing about the 501st, aside from their awesome charity work, they actually have David Prowse as a member, and he was the original Vader.
Nice.
That is cool.
That is pretty cool.
Wow.
That's cool, but that's made me so nervous. Like I had a really cool idea to write a script about these original characters who are on like the Enterprise D, and you don't see the the canon characters, but the original characters talk about the events that are happening, or they might make comments about the main characters, like, oh hey, the commander flirted with me today. We all know that obviously Riker. Right? But now I'm like, nope, I don't want to do that. I'll just get sued. Never mind.
Yeah.
But I mean,
well, I think that you're a talented enough writer that you could create characters that people will be just as quick to fall in love.
Well, thank you. So, LARPing, what's next for you guys on the LARP agenda? Besides Dreamation.
I teach classes on Fridays, Saturdays, and I work at a library on Sunday mornings, so I'm probably going to have to axe Dreamation this year. It's hard enough just doing anything on the weekends the way this works out. It sucks.
Yeah, employment is good, but that sucks.
February, the first weekend, is the first MR event since the holiday season. And February events are always big for us because they have a lot of in-character events. So there's a lot of extras that go on that event. We've had like bachelor and bachelorette like auctions. I've sold like steak dinners to people that I've cooked for like one-on-one like dinner dates and candle stuff. Like a lot of fun and energy beyond just fighting. It's like a little bit more creative and character depth happens under that month.
Awesome.
And there's a lot of players that are new coming because of our events that we've done at KatoriCon and some other events, and also older players are returning.
Nice. Let's see. For me, I still, of course, LARP at Seventh Kingdom every month. So they always take off in December. So I'm preparing to kind of resume the LARP season with January. Coming into that, got my big speech that I was talking about earlier. Kind of nervous about that, but I'm ready. And February, I've got Dreamation. And then June, New World Magiscola. And somewhere in there, I'm hoping to sneak in some more Faglen, and I'm hoping to get to Oblivion as well. So I try to do like 2 LARPs per month, but I get busy and it's hard. And I've got a lot of conventions in there too. I'm going to be at Wizard World Philly. I'm going to be at New York Comic Con again this year. Was looking
what
at
about
maybe
Supernatural Con?
I am not going to Supernatural Con because I'm not a Supernatural fan, but the Geek Initiative will hopefully cover it. And I'm actually looking at maybe going out to Gen Con. I thought that might be a cool game to cover, or a cool convention to cover. They have tabletop and LARP there, and since I really like that format at Dreamation, I thought I'd maybe give that a try at another convention as well.
I've never been to Gen Con, but I feel it's like nerd mecca. You got to go at least once. If I don't make it out this year, then next year will be the year that I do it. I've been wanting to go for like over a decade, but I think Dragon Con's a good con. You should definitely make time for.
Big, it's a big con. I don't know. I think I'd rather send someone else because I do Comic-Con, and that's like a really huge New York Comic-Con. That's like a huge, exhaustive event, that, or maybe I'd like to just go as a fan and just not have to like work the whole time. Yep. Rick, what about you? What are your LARP plans? I know you're going to Dreamation with us. What else?
I don't know. I'm kind of slowing down from it a bit. Seeing things change the way they change, and how certain games do things. I keep looking at things more pragmatically, and because I usually only get like one day to LARP, and it's usually like just a Saturday, and like I don't have too much time to go, and I try and make it as fruitful as possible. Like I go with people I hang out with, and I want to spend the time with that group and not worry about working. And things are changing in the LARPs I go to that don't allow that anymore. So, and I'm not saying I'll never go. It's just that I find it harder to get myself to work up to go to do those things.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Sometimes when you go to games, sometimes you want to just try the game, but other times you want to go and actually hang out with the people you're going to the game with. And it's really annoying when, for whatever reason, you can't do that at a game. Like, I can't stand going with a small group of friends and then they split you up for a mandatory NPC shift. And it's like, I'm here with my friends. I don't have a problem doing an NPC shift if we can still, like, hang together and LARP together. Yeah, I'm also not a fan of mandatory NPC. I'm spoiled. 17 has spoiled me. I used to be a staff member, so I NPC'd for a long time. And now I generally don't NPC, and I don't get guilted into NPCing because I did it for years. And I'm like, no, I'm here to PC and enjoy myself. And, they needed me to do something specific, I would, but I'm like, nope, my turn to PC and do that. And I'm just completely freaking spoiled because you don't have to NPC there. They do offer some pretty cool incentives when they're low on NPC volunteers. so that people do just step in and volunteer?
Yeah,
Well, I think that when you get down to it, we are talking about one of the great curses. Huh? Sorry? Yeah, what Kelvin said. They were awesome, and I went to my shift, and they said, no, go back. Can you take another shift next month? Because you can't miss this next one. And they were right.
Yeah, if I ever NPC'd at Seventh Kingdom and missed King Baelor, which is my character's king that she's like crazy about, I don't think I'd ever forgive whoever didn't tell me that like I should be PCing right now. Like I would be so angry.
Well,
right?
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about, Kyle?
I gotta jump in here in the defense of mandatory NPC shifts, because let's not kid ourselves here. For every Seventh Kingdom that can get enough of a staff to put together a mandatory, not mandatory, make it so that NPCing is optional, and that they can have everybody they need to get things done. There are also smaller LARPs that are just starting out, and it's like, staff? What staff?
That's
We're
true,
making
yeah.
stuff as we go along. And more importantly, you have a situation where... Have you ever walked into a main mod where there were no NPCs? How does that look?
Fun. That's not fun. Oh, Dan, we switched in the middle of like a main mod once, didn't we? Like, or right when it started, we were like, let's switch, and that was fun.
There weren't enough NPCs, and I went over, like I kind of talked to a guy that's like he's like a manager, and I was like, hey, I noticed you guys are pretty low. You tell me what costume to throw on or whatever. Like we'll jump sides because I'd rather have a good fight than no fight. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
absolutely.
But unless you have a very specific character moment, you know those exceptions exist. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it's got to be good for everybody, or it's good for nobody.
And that was a good experience because our group got to stay together, and I was playing, I forget what kind of character I was playing, but I had wanted to try playing a bard at Mystic Realms, but my PC was not a bard. And when we flipped and went NPC side, the guy running it was like, oh yeah, you can, try it as an NPC. Here you go, just play this. And he handed me the sheet, and I got to actually give it a try. And of course, NPCing is always a wonderful way to try a new class without committing your character to it. So as a new player in that system, that was really cool. And then I also got to stick in a group with my friends, so that helped too.
My challenge to a game that feels that they have to have mandatory NPC is to work on your culture and try to develop this attitude of giving back and a sense of theater, and saying that we don't want you to do it all the time, or we don't want all the people to do it all the time, so that everyone's taking a chance or taking their time at the helm, because it works both ways. If you only PC, you're not going to value the time and energy that somebody puts into writing and producing an event. And if you only NPC and produce events, then you forget what it is to see it from the PC perspective. You can't just stand on stage. You got to also sit in the audience, and vice versa. And I think it maintains a healthy level of appreciation of both sides.
Well,
lots of chatter on the side, and I just contributed to it. So Devlin's pointing out, while steamrolling mods are fun, the best battles are the ones where both sides are even and it's a constant back and forth. And I'd have to agree with that. And even mods where the PCs are not necessarily meant to win, or maybe, it's not decided, but it's supposed to be an actual challenge for them. I think that's always really interesting, because you always have the people that are like, I refuse to lose, I refuse to leave, and they end up dead, and then it causes drama.
You should have like something to do other than just kill the other side.
Yeah.
Like you need an objective for those kinds of events, or people are just going to fight until they fall down.
That's true. Yeah.
And also,
my take on it, I've NPC'd since I was 16, all the way to 5 or 6 years ago. So we're looking at almost 20 years of just working at LARPs not playing. And I always enjoyed like the ones that had incentives to NPC rather than making it mandatory. If you juice it up a little bit, like, hey, your character's away, what is he getting out of this, like, or she? And there's systems out there that say, well, while you're NPC, your character takes his soul, or, I mean, somebody's going to take experience, but, like, you also need a little help. And there's also the idea of repeatable mods. If you do, like the MRS sets up a system where there's always something going on, and it's not always huge, but it's always something to do, and it's repeatable, and people, you want to have large groups over and over. You don't have the discussion of it out. And if in that culture where yes and culture, people go, hey, we need this. I'm usually more than happy to say, hey, we're looking for this one or two months. I'm always, sometimes I know that I only have one day, a couple hours. And if I'm paying money to play the game, I don't want to feel like I have to work with it. But there's also the game that you're running a couple months ago, and it's like, you can help out. And that was going to be my day at LARP. I was like, you know what? Why not? And I'm actually going to be helping out with it.
We completely lost you.
And
Yeah, we're losing you at the end of what you're saying.
that's what I'm there for. Have great. That's me. Well,
Yeah, I think I got
Yeah.
most of what Rick was saying. He was saying that
what was my last phrase?
he was saying that if his time is limited, he doesn't want to spend it feeling like he's working if he can only be at the game for like a certain amount of hours. And I rolled into a game with Dan and also with Kane. I want to say it was like maybe a year and a half ago, and we showed up and we were only day trip in. We were there for just Saturday, and they had us do like a 6-hour NPC shift. We sat around half the time, and it was cool. And we finally got to roll in, but it was a long battle. And while I was a PC, I did like nothing. Like I had one role play interaction, and it was just like, that's it. Yeah, it was at least a 6-hour NPC shift, and that was not
They
fun.
told us to report at a certain time, but our shift didn't start. And then when it started, they were late getting started for our shift. So then once the scene was going, it ran like an hour over because you can't just walk off the field. It's not like I'm punching a clock. You know what I mean? It was so annoying. And then when we came back in, it was like there was no one else there. I was like, where are the people sitting? Like, where we did it? Where's ours? You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, that was satisfying. And I think my big problem with it was, I was a new player. The guys hadn't been there very consistently, so they had a great opportunity to hook a new player and to bring 2 returning players back consistently. And they sent there just weren't any mods. And I know that it's tough to run a game and to keep people entertained in that Saturday afternoon slump. But there was just everything that came out. There was nothing that I could do. And then it was NPC shift time. And it was just really disappointing.
Wait, which game was this?
I don't want to say what it is. I'm not going to say what it is, but...
Yeah.
Because that kind of reminds me of another LARP I've been to.
Did you have a similar experience?
I mean, it's not an isolated incident. People that are creative and good writers and are passionate to perform are not the best event coordinators and aren't the best logistics managers. That's it. Oddly enough, they're not the same skill set. So I don't fault those people, but they just need that talent.
Yeah, it takes all kinds to run a game. And I know even from running a website, there are things I'm great at doing. I'm amazing at having a creative vision and planning out a yearly editorial calendar and coming up with topic ideas and mentoring writers. But I am not great at managing all of these writers and keeping everyone motivated. I'm so Corey stepped in and was like, hey, I'll help you out, because it's not only is it more than one job, nobody's good at everything, or nobody's great at everything. Like, everyone's going to be better at one thing than the other. And that's a huge part of being staff of the game, is like recognize what you're good at, and like if you're not great at something or you don't really love doing it, like pass that off to someone who's really enthusiastic about it if you can.
Well, at moments like this, I'm kind of happy about how simple the LARP I help run is. I actually help. I'm one of the GMs at Zenkai LARP. We only play once a year, but it's almost always... It's a very different feel to a lot of ongoing LARPs, because it's usually, okay, here's an anime character. You get to play as this character for this weekend. You can play as much or as little as you'd like. Hop in and out exactly as much as you'd like. Have a good time. And we're all floor GMs at Zenkai LARP, and it's a rock, paper, scissors LARP. So most of the time when we're not running events, we're running around and herding cats, and the players do a lot of what we need to for them. And the great secret is that we have 12 months out of a year to prep for this one huge Nexus LARP shindig, so it's almost impossible to screw up. We have a full year to prep. Meanwhile, you guys are talking about doing monthly LARPs and running monthly LARPs, and that's just scary to me. Because it's like, wow, we had a whole year to design that encounter. We're having a great time. Imagine doing it in 1 month, but instead of doing rock, paper, scissors, everybody's beating each other with foam sticks.
Set it live, man.
Set it live!
Set it live! That's true. That's true. So I can't believe we still have 9 people total in here watching our discussion. That's awesome. For a blab that's actually like pretty popular. We've had over 40 people come in over the course of this blab, which is great. An awesome first blab for the Geek Initiative. We're really happy about that. For anybody that hasn't been to my website, I'm going to type the URL in here. Check it out. We're all about women in geek culture, but we have a huge section about LARPing. We've also been writing a lot about Star Wars. We have a lot of commentary on there. And please go ahead and check it out. So Kelvin is saying, I live by the 20-minute rule. Hook the mod 20 minutes early. Prep your NPCs for that mod at the same time. And everything runs on time. That is an awesome idea. That's not something that I've ever tried. As somebody running a mod, but I know that like you run into the problem of like, okay, I've hooked 10 people for this 10-person mod, and then you look behind you and you're like, and there's the whole town. And sometimes you just kind of have to not really like go out of character, but just be like, I need 10 heroes to help me. That's kind of an art.
There's an understanding. There's an etiquette. Like, if all of you help me with this run, like, you're not going to be able to help me out with this other run. You know what I mean? Like writing. Like, you're not a farmer trying to save his wife, or, a woman trying to save her husband. You're trying to save your 5 sisters or your 5 brothers. You know what I mean? Like, you just got to write it differently.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And there has to be this out-of-game understanding from your players that it's more fun when it's 10 versus 6 NPCs than 40 versus 4. Like, that's dumb.
Yeah.
Well, I think one thing that, just going back to the main topic that we currently have set up, I think this is where mandatory NPC shifts come in, because that definitely solves your 4 versus 40 problem. Being able to recruit members of the player base to come in and be the monster, be the bad guy, and my display driver just died again. But I'll finish my rousing speech anyway.
Okay, we still hear you. We see you.
And when you get down to it, sometimes it's fun to, for a few hours, not be your character, but to be Godzilla.
And you're
Have you
right.
had that opportunity?
And the way that you're saying it, your personality, your charisma, that's what you need to staff an event. That's what people, you have to give them the illusion of choice, even if it's an illusion. You know what I mean? You got to make them want to do it, whether by, dictating to power gamers and advancing their character, or telling them to do it with their friends and their or pining to their creative efforts, or don't you want to come play a super powerful troll with me? Like that's you gotta, as opposed to showing up, especially as a new player, and then you're giving me stats to monsters that I don't know how they work, or I don't even know how your rules go. So now every player has to interact with somebody that doesn't know the rules and monsters, or also I have to make sure that you play a monster that doesn't talk so that you don't mess up the storyline, because I don't have time to teach you it. So players are constantly fighting armies of monsters that don't roleplay with them. Like, and I'm not talking about any game specifically. Like, this is just my very anecdotal but consistent viewpoint that I've seen over my experiences.
Yeah, that's a multiple game thing, definitely.
It's a lose-lose, because you're not getting the quality. If just by you showing up and me sitting around like a bench or a chair and trying to read over a piece of paper, that's even if you have a scene sheet. Like, some places don't even have adventures written down. They just read off their phone, or they tell you how it's going to go. And you lose quality. You lose it.
Well, one of my favorite NPC shifts lately, by the way, truth be told, I've been out of LARPing for a while, but gotta love you guys at Oblivion, because you're actually close enough for me to do work and play the same weekend. But so we ended up playing Jones Squad. And the idea with Jones Squad is there was going to be a court-martial the next day. So we got together some military-esque gear and dart guns-related weaponry, and we said we're the team that's coming in advance to make sure the area is clear and figure out how we're setting up the defenses. So we sidle into the rec room of this campground where all the PCs are currently hanging out in militaresque fashion. We are a CPF combined task force. And we're just, scanning the place, looking around, taking measurements. And if a fight had started, our stats were ridiculous. I was playing a sniper who could kill shot master, which in practical terms is, oh, by the way, if you don't have the right defense for this, your death count just started. And the point was that we weren't there to start a fight. We were just there to talk, scout around, figure out the area, figure out who could defend this place, while all our military advisors were there handling the court-martial. And, there was only going to be a fight if the PCs started a fight. Otherwise, we were just going to walk around, be suspicious, and have a good time. And that was one of the most fun NPC shifts I've had in a while, because it's just like, okay, we're not random zombies. We're just very suspicious looking. And heavily armed. And asking a lot of questions.
Yeah, I definitely...
And no fight started.
I really liked NPC shifts where I got to learn about the game. Like as a new player, I find NPC shifts really valuable just because it's a great way to learn the system. And my experience, like I was saying about when I was at MR and actually got to try a class that I was not PCing but had wanted to try, was extremely valuable, because not only did I get to do that, I got to roll with my friends, and I just felt really comfortable, where if you just kind of like roll into a LARP, especially if you're by yourself, it can feel really awkward when you're like, go NPC, you know what I mean? Like, that can be a little weird, and it gets scary when like you come into games and people are like, oh, have you LARPed before? What have you done? Where have you gone? Like, how many years have you been LARPing? And I'm like, I don't want to like talk myself up and then like make you think that I can just like roll in and know your rule book and like be amazing.
Yeah, whenever they ask you that question, they're like scouting you out. They want to know what your power level is.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a competitive or PvP enabled LARP.
Yeah,
Let me tell you about the worst LARP I've ever been to.
Go for it.
Now, I'm not going to name names, but I'm pretty sure if I talk for long enough, you guys will figure it out. So, I go to this game, and my friend Sarah, who is amazing, brought me and a bunch of the anime LARP guys and girls we knew from New York to this game, and Jersey. And it's a standard medieval fantasy game. I'm not naming names, but it's been around for years, decades even. And I have never LARPed before. I've done like a million years of tabletop. But at this point, I did the anime LARP, rock, paper, scissors stuff, but never a boffer LARP, mind you. So I go in, and very first experience I have is one of the older players, who was also an older player, an elderly gentleman who'd been playing since the dinosaurs were alive, came and he talked to us. He felt us out a little, gave us a bit of a LARP spiel, and he gave us the explanation about how you shouldn't go around alone at night. You want to be very careful because you never know what's going to be lurking in the darkness. Standard LARP stuff. And as part of his explanation, he goes to me and he goes, "And charm. Come with me a moment." And I, however, had played a character who had a defense against this possibility. Inner calm. And he's like, "Oh, that's nice, charm." And this was him showing off how big his LARP dick was. He had to. I bet he does this every time there are new players. He had to come in and demonstrate the width and girth of his LARP dick to us hopeless newbies. And so he comes in and he does that, and I'm like, okay, all right, you've had your fun. Thanks, bye. And I was at this game, and nobody wanted to meet my character. Nobody wanted to interact with me because I was going to get weeded out. That was pretty much what I felt the attitude was. So I went there for 2 events and went back for a special celebration. And it wasn't until that celebration that I'd been around long enough that they were all like, "Wait a minute, we should talk to you. You might actually be a player at this game for more than a day." And I hate that. I want to go to a game and I want to feel like I could be a member of this community. I could play with these people. I'm going to actually have a good time pretending to be someone else in whatever world this is.
Yeah, for me,
I don't
definitely
need someone to walk in and immediately demonstrate the size of their LARP dick and be mostly ignored by everyone around me, or just like, oh.
For me, that relates a lot to any kind of like factions or kingdom groups, because there's a plus and a minus to it. The positive is when somebody comes into a new game, and I have a leadership role in a kingdom group at Seventh Kingdom, my home LARP. When someone comes in and they're like, "Hey, I'm going to be a member of this kingdom," I can kind of take them under my wing, and it's like my in and out of game responsibility as a PC to help them out, make sure they, know who can train them, make sure nobody like kills them or is a jerk to them in or out of game like too much. And it's great because it kind of like sets it up so that the PCs can help one another. But of course, the downside to it is everyone gets like super clannish and really like, "Go me, go my kingdom," and then like, people can take it personally. And people get threatened in and out of game when like your group has basically a big size. I mean, it's a size contest, just like
my
like
clan's totally going to beat up your clan in this game that has no bearing on real life. I will slay you and your unborn. That's the thing that
I gotta
terrifies
disagree
me.
with you. I think
there's a lot of games where people
game
forget
does
that
have
they're
bearing
here
on
to
real
play
life.
a game and have a good time.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Go ahead, Dan.
I gotta respectfully disagree with you. I gotta say that a game does have bearing on real life. It follows. It's like a social club. It's all the jockeying for position that happens in high school happens in these games, and to say that it's not happening is you're just wrong. So, I mean, if you have more people on your team thinking that your idea is good or this perceived strength, more often than not, you're going to have a better time.
All
There's
right,
no way around it.
let me counterpoint here, because I agree with everything you said to a point. Okay. Yes, a LARP is, and a LARP environment is like real life. But the chief thing that we're all trying to do when we go to one of these games, the chief purpose is to have a good time. And when people are waving around their clan dicks, they may forget at times that we're all here to have a good time, and that maybe, just maybe, limiting the dickery to a certain width and girth, if you will, is best for everyone involved.
I think that you are, for lack of a better word, touching on a very important point when you're using the member word over and over again.
Hey-o!
It's about maturity, and that if it's a purely competitive game and everyone wants to measure things, they will. But as you do it for a while, you realize there's more to it. But not everybody's on that same learning curve, and some games reinforce that culture by empowering players that lead by example and can coach and develop new players to set that culture. You're going to have that good kind of game. And when a game's going I'm sorry, the last one I'll point out is that when a game's going through its fledgling stages, when it's still deciding whether or not they want strikes to do 2 damage or 6 damage when they swing with 1 or 2 hands, they're not focused, or they don't necessarily bring people on board to recognize and develop that culture. It gets pushed lower in the spectrum. And I think that's more important than the rules. Player retention, bringing people up, and making them feel good to be being a part of that organization is going to make you a lot more money than whether or not a spell should also make you close one eye or jump on one foot.
Kudos. I back everything you just said. That was brilliant.
Thank you. But I think you and I both want the same thing, but you and I both see the wrong behavior all the time.
Yeah, to piggyback in, like, the idea really is about the culture, and it's 100% how you encourage your players to interact, and how you interact with the players is a huge deal in your welcoming people game. And it's, again, the yes and inviting people to play, and there was something I was going with that, and I completely had a complete derailing of my train of thought, but it 100% agrees with Dan. It's consensual entertainment. Like, everybody comes along the lines, and they know that they're coming here to be entertained, and they're also there to entertain other people. It's sharing of the community that makes LARPs grow.
Yeah, and there's also that level, and we've touched on this too, that level of competition. And I know that this comes up a lot in LARP Haven, which is a huge discussion group over on Facebook. Competition in LARP. Are you playing to win the game? Are you playing to win the social game, like the out-of-game social game that goes along with that? And, is that something more specific to American fantasy campaign LARPs in the northeastern United States? Because, a lot of the things I read suggest that it's more specific to our region than to other games. I work for a company that's actually based in Russia, and based on my interactions there, I would also say that competitive culture is extremely different, in the United States compared to other parts of the world. And it's something that, we don't think about a lot until we're faced with, people who are doing something differently. So, even though I'm not necessarily like the most competitive person, especially in combat, I still like a challenge. So even if I'm not competing against another player or an NPC, like, I still want to get the thing. I still want to win the whatever it is, or get the promotion and get the next best job. Like, that's just part of who I am and part of what I like to achieve in a game. So it's really weird when you start to talk about these issues, and then, some people will be like, well, that's not the point of the game. And it's like, well, it can be a point of the game for me. Like, I really enjoy political roleplay, for example, and that sort of thing. So what do you guys think about, like, the competition and whether or not that's like a positive or negative thing in a LARP?
Well, in my case, the thing that I want to win, for lack of a better way to put it, is coming up with creative solutions, and ridiculous solutions, mind you, to difficult problems. My favorite thing is when I come up with the correct ridiculous combination that either solves the problem or makes people laugh, or does both. Because that is my way of winning.
I think that Dave and I look for a lot of similar things at a game, and correct me if I'm wrong, I like an outlet that can express my creativity and where I can be acknowledged for my contribution in an intellectual manner.
Yes.
But not everybody's like that, and it's good to have a game that appeals to all audiences. Touching on an earlier point that Rick was really hammering home, and David and I were already touching on, is that you have to be entertaining other people, is what Rick said, and I agree with that 100%. You know, if I'm walking around looking, how can I be entertained? Like, I'm driving up to a gas station and I want the LARP to, you know, put their gun in my entertainment tank and fill me up on fun. That's the wrong way to approach the setting. And we talk about that negative culture that comes up, and more often than not from players that of massive multiplayer online RPGs that log in, queue up for raids, fight the bad guy, get the loot, and bounce. You know, that gamer culture, which is making the crossover to live action role playing games, it's no longer theater nerds that are LARPing. And I say that with the utmost respect. Okay, it's gamers, you know, and it's this immersive growing hobby that's, you know, I don't want to be bound by my PlayStation controller. You know, I want to fight. So setting that tone and realizing that as long as we're all entertaining everyone around us, you know, not just what's the most fun for me, that if we're all entertaining each other, we're all going to walk away with a good time.
I'm going to be just a moment. I'm going to refresh because I can't see anything except, yeah.
Okay.
But I really like this discussion. Just want to.
All right, come back in.
Yeah, I mean, since it's just you and me, Tara, I could just talk all night. I mean, I could go through 2 pitchers of beers and, you know, 2 tables worth of conversation about this. You know what I mean? And I bounced around. I played a lot of games, and I just can't deal with the growing pains that people don't realize that it's a social club.
Yeah.
If we're competitive, even if it's the best writing in the world, doesn't matter. Even if it's the best writing in the world, if you and I are so motivated to be so competitive, I'm going to stop going on adventures because they're going to weaken my character, and I will not be at 100% for when you and I finally have to throw down.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
And I'm going to surround myself with people. I'm going to get bigger and bigger, and none of us are going to go on adventures because eventually you and I are going to have to throw down.
Right, right.
And then it's just 2 groups of 30 plus people sitting at their camp talking about how they're going to kill the other camp, and nobody going on adventures or entertaining each other.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fun to have a little bit of that, and that's just a personal preference. A little bit of that PvP, but I don't really enjoy it being the center of the game. You know, like there's got to be some kind of objective for the PCs other than, you know, just killing each other. I mean, there are games that exist where it's only PvP, but that's just not necessarily my preference. I don't think it has to be all PvE, but, you know, just that antagonism is only fun to a certain degree for me. You know,
And it's like what I was talking about with the final battle. There needs to be an objective other than just killing the other side. You know what I mean? Even if it's something like controlling, like keeping my idol, like my holy relic, inside a circle for an hour when the stars are aligned. As long as I can keep it there for an hour, then that's fine. Especially in a game where there isn't like 100% perm death. Like, yeah, you're going to have to go through downtime, and I'm going to be able to keep my idol in the circle. But once it's done, it's done. Otherwise, I'm going to kill you till you don't resurrect anymore, or there's no one to resurrect you. I'm going to break all your stuff, steal all your items,
Well, Daniel,
and then when you do finally come back, you got nothing.
Yeah, Rick, are you there? I know you were saying something.
I was actually going to. Kelvin was talking about PvP, and in the spirit of competition and stuff like that. I'm sure Dan is the great example of our group in that. In the
PvP enabled Mystic Realms game.
How we're antagonistic, but we're fun. Yeah, but we're
Yeah, we
We're
don't step on
antagonists,
anybody's
we're fun
neck.
about it. We're not like
We're not
being
bullies.
dicks and overpowering. Yeah.
It's important to me that your interaction,
Yeah,
even though you're
it's
my
fun. I mean, I'm a
antagonist.
Saturday morning cartoon villain, and
Yeah.
I get laughed at.
Exactly. It's again, just from my anecdotal experience, Rick's cutting out, so him and I both agree on the same thing as far as PvP in a lot of ways. But more often than not, the role playing stops. Using my example of the two camps of 30 people, we're not interacting with each other, so the story is not progressing. We're just waiting for the other side to show weakness and kill the other group.
Yeah, that's true. And even just on the level of like, the character that I've played for so many years, it's like there's only so much you can do with, is my character safe? Is my character protected? Are they going to kill me? Is this whole group going to hunt me down and murder me before it gets like boring or before the bleed gets to other people, if not yourself? And it's like, oh my God, I had one experience with bleed where a whole bunch of people one month decided they wanted to kill my character, not even for like any great reason, but they just like turned on her. And after game, I was looking to kind of like, my way of debriefing is like talking about it for like a day, like on the ride home, and the next day I talk about it with my friends who were there, and that's kind of like my informal debriefing. And I didn't get that. And so not only was I bothered that I didn't get that debriefing that I need, but it was also that I was like ostracized because my character had been on the outs. You know what I mean? And it was like, it was really the most weird feeling. Like, are you really not talking to me because you didn't like what my character supposedly did? It was very, very odd. And especially playing a character that's usually rather likable. And, so that kind of stuff is really heavily impacted by PvP and PvP actions. It just makes it entirely worse, And
oh my God, don't get me started on it, because some games have rules on it, but like, say I go and I kill your character, you get healed and you want to kill me back. I'm with Rick and some of my friends at the diner laughing about how you guys are schlubs still looking for us in the woods. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it might be against the rules for me to leave, but I mean, bye.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, deuces, there's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. It's just the stories, the potential, the benefits for all these great stories involving PvP are just so outweighed by all the negatives. Mm-hmm. Like, you and I have a mutual friend who I don't want to name that gets anxious about that stuff. And it's like, I don't want to go on an adventure that somebody spent all this time writing because I could die. And I don't want my character to go away. You know what I mean? And, no amount of affirmations or confirmations or saying that we're going to go with you will remove that nagging voice in the back of their head, like, it could happen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
And to some people, like Rick and I, maybe that invigorates us. They're like, yeah, fucking bring it on. But to some people, it's not like that.
I like that feeling kind of when you go.
Let me make sure that
that
comment that I just made, that sounded kind of sexist, but it wasn't intentional. It just so happened to be that way. I wasn't saying like Rick and I, because we're guys, we want to fight. I'm just, let me make sure.
Yeah,
that's
no,
clear.
I mean, I relate to that too, because I love the feeling of going into, and it happens a lot at 7K when I go into a main mod, where I look at the situation and I'm like, I'm not exactly sure I'm going to come out of this alive, but it's kind of also cool because you really, you give your all during the fight, because you don't know if you're going to come out alive. It adds something to the character. It adds something to the role play. It can add something too when you know that somebody is like hunting you in the middle of main mod. It definitely makes me think a lot more about strategy and how I talk to people in game. But the bleed does suck. If there's bleed and it like causes anxiety, which hasn't really happened to me too much, but has happened to me a couple times, that could suck too. But yeah, like that feeling can be invigorating for some people and like terrifying for others. If someone wants to hunt me down now, like I'm like, you could try, you know, it'll make an interesting story, I guess.
That said, hi, what I miss?
Hey, welcome back. We were talking about competition in LARP still and PvP.
The threat of it, what the feelings it elicits out of players, pros and cons, and one of the points I bring up is that, like, if you and I have an antagonistic relationship in a PvP-centric game, more often than not, the role-playing ends as soon as I start striking you with my sword, whether through me killing you and you're dead, you killing me, or us hiding from each other and not interacting with each other, and that takes a level of sophistication and maturity that's not always found in some players, because it's like shaking hands. You know, like you don't always want to be the first person to extend your hand outward. You know what I mean? Or you don't know if the other person's gonna do it back. So you don't necessarily pursue those that role playing relationship, as it were.
And Kelvin also brings up a really good point about, when a PC kills a PC, sometimes like if that happens, people will be like, oh, that's it. I'm going to get them. I'm going to take it personally. But if like the big bad NPC comes after your PC, you're like at a game, you're like, oh, that was so cool. Like let's go get them. And that's definitely true. And I know like for me, one of the challenges is treating PCs and NPCs the same. Like I try to do that, even though that, out of game, you might know that someone's a PC, someone's an NPC. At Empire of Tears, I went in not really knowing the staff, and I really liked that I couldn't tell who was an NPC and who was a PC, so there was like no way I could confuse it. That was pretty cool, but I've also run into problems playing
like they
a healer.
recruit you to join your faction and tell you to come to a meeting, and then you're like, hey, where are you guys going?
Yeah,
I'll join you, but where are you going? And they're like, we're NPCs. We have to go run other modules, but we'll be back in a couple hours.
Yeah, but playing a healer, one time I got in trouble because there were like random NPCs that needed to be healed. These NPCs who were just like people who live near the town were sick, and it was a 60-second count for me to fix them. It was like a big deal. But PCs are also getting affected by the same thing. And PCs are also in danger of dying. And there were only so many healers. And I was like, okay, but, my character isn't going to be like, that's an NPC. She's going to treat everyone the same. Like, she'll give preference to people who are like her family or her kingdom group. But overall, she's not going to be like, I'm not going to heal you because you're an NPC farmer, like she's like, oh, you're a farmer. What you do is vital to the survival of this town. Let me heal you,
Well, herein lies one of the biggest problems with LARP, and it's one of the huge problems because there's nothing you can do about it. It is a problem that can never be fixed. You see, if a tabletop character you're playing dies, yeah, you might be miffed about it, but unless you're really fixated and you've been playing the same character for 10 years, you'll get over it. When the LARP character that you've spent X dollars a month investing in for X years gets killed, you have lost X dollars worth of investment. And while there are a lot of people who won't phrase it that way, that's what it comes down to. You've thrown a lot of money into making the most badass at whatever you can do. And not only is it a matter of the character you enjoy playing dying, it's a matter of all the investment that is now lost. So one of the biggest sources of out-of-game grudge is going to be, oh, by the way, so much for that money. And whether people will admit it or not, once that NPC, gets healed as opposed to that PC, it's like, wow. You do realize there's no investment in that NPC, right? None. Despite the fact that in reality, your character would go, I will heal everyone equally. She would take the time to heal them regardless if they were PC or NPC. But at the end of the day, they're going to ignore that fact in favor of, how much of my investment is gone?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a space to kind of like mourn that. It's just that it's not socially acceptable to be like, I spent $500 on this costume and now I can't really use it at this LARP anymore. And, it's a crappy reason, I guess, to not like that your character died, but I think it's valid. Like, there's a lot of shame for somebody who's like, oh, I spent so much money on this. And, I think you need to let people have that space to grieve their character, or there's just going to be more tension.
Well, it's even worse if a PC kills you, because if an NPC kills you, everybody can go, oh, well, I lost that whole investment. Big deal. That's the risk you take in this game. That's the risk we're going to have when we have these fights. But if a PC kills you, that means that another human being who you know for a fact is going to continue to play this character, continue on, has taken your investment. And as awful as it is, that's going to stick for people, even though they shouldn't let that affect them. Because that, I think, is the underlying psychology of hardcore PvP player grudge.
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely observed it. It happens. I think, like, a huge part of the problem with PC death is, a character death is, number one, like, in some games, there isn't really, like, a space or a time to grieve it. I mean, at Seventh Kingdom, a beloved character just bit the dust, sort of. It was Jaxor. We love him. He's the other leader character in my Kingdom group, so for my character, it was a pretty big loss because he was a tough guy and like the other tough person leading this crew. And I know, right, Devlin? It's so sad. We love Jaxor, but we knew in game as well that it was like gonna happen. It was coming down the pike. We kind of had some time to prepare. But sometimes you don't have that. Sometimes it doesn't happen. And the way people grieve characters, like, there's a stigma against grieving them out of game. It's like, you talk about like Star Wars or like movies or any other thing that has characters, you're like, sometimes people will shame you for being like, I'm so sad that we lost that character, or other people won't deal with it in like a healthy or respectful way. They'll just like rage against the franchise just because they're pissed that that character died, when it's like, no, really, it's okay to say like, I'm upset that he's gone and I need some space before I can like watch this again and move on. Because hey, that was my reaction. I was like, that was part of the reason it was a B+. I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. I have a lot of feelings. Like, I need some space before I can watch it again. And then that's what I did. And now I'm okay with it, and I got a lot more out of it. But it's okay to grieve a character, a fictional character. It's fine, but our culture doesn't always agree.
Well, I think Kelvin makes an excellent point over in the corner there. He mentioned that there are a lot of LARPs that are introducing retirement mechanics to sort of try and alleviate that feel. I'm brain farting here. You get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, no, I went from dreading the thought of like losing my main PC to being really excited about some death and retirement possibilities. She's very battle oriented, so it is possible that she will die in battle, but I really also like the idea of her becoming like more of this like important diplomat that staff can use whenever the heck they want. General Leia is my hero, so my character started as a princess, and she's becoming more like a general, and so I'm like really a fan of that idea and that being possible for her to do if she retires. But it's interesting because when I talk about that with other people who play characters who are very close to her, they don't want to hear about it. They're like, we don't want to hear about CR going away. And I'm like, but I could be like some super important person that could maybe come along and like give you presents, But they're just like, no, they don't want to hear about it. They don't want to hear that like I, come back to visit from the bog and give them weapons that could destroy everything. They would rather the character be here. And, it's really flattering to hear that, but it's also like, I get that because I feel that way about their characters too. Nana's character, Vitani, was super popular character at Seventh Kingdom. and she went away, but she's come back, as like a staff NPC action, and just had a really positive impact on the characters who are still there. Like, she came back and was one of the NPCs that changed my character's outlook and direction. It's happened, like, I would say, like 2 or 3 times with some, like pretty big deal NPCs. They really changed her direction, and her character coming back was one of the ones that did it. And that was really cool. So the fact that, characters can come back and like change things in a meaningful way, or that their absence can really impact the other characters, is almost kind of, to me, an incentive to die or retire, your character.
One of the things that I want to address with that counter that is from a very jaded point of view, like a very computer-esque point of view. Let's say you and I start a LARP. You and I have the right idea about player retention, and we want to run it as a business model, not so that you and I are rich, but just so that it's successful, okay? We have noble intentions. You and I are no stranger to market research. We're very experienced, and we make a list of the top 10 reasons why people stop playing a game. There are some things on that list, like moving, getting a job where they work weekends, that there's nothing we can do about.
Right.
But there are a lot of things that we can do about it. So-and-so PvP'd me. I thought it was personal, blah, 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 drama. I don't go back anymore. I feel like I'm specifically targeted by NPCs, blah, 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 blah. Don't do that. My character died. After that, I felt like that was all I could get out of it. And, I drifted away. These things you're going to hear again and again and again as reasons why people stop playing a game. And if you are going to run your game with a business model intent and a focus to retain players, you're going to remove those things that are going to cause people never to come back. Just because it's just good business.
Indeed. And my display driver died once again. Gonna have to get that fixed.
Looks like Dave will be back once he reconnects. But no, that makes sense. LARP as a business is another relevant topic to this, because you obviously still want people to come back. You want to make money, and you want people to be happy so that they do come back. And that definitely plays into everything that Kelvin was saying in the chat about, incentives for retiring your character and how that's kind of in fashion now. And, I know for me, that's huge. Like, I have the option at Seventh Kingdom of putting some of my build to like an alt character, but I go like full force. I put it all towards my main, even if I'm playing another character as well, because I'm like, that's great. When she goes away, some of that build will be refunded and I can use it towards another character. And right now I want to like put all my focus here. I want to put my effort into this. And I know that when she dies or retires, she will have some sort of positive impact on her kingdom, even if it's just like buffing everybody for like a couple months. Like, I know that would happen, because that's where I put all my roleplay focus.
Some epic BSR.
That would be great. I'd love it. That would be great. Something very sparkly and bloody.
Just, magic wand in one hand, giant hammer in the other, sparkles, glitter, and blood.
Yes, that's my character. So what do you guys think about running a LARP as a business versus running a LARP as a non-profit organization?
Can't do it.
I have no idea. I've never been in either position. Well, I mean, the only thing that's close is the fact that I am a GM for Zenkai LARP every year, but the trick is that with the anime LARP scene, it's pretty much, hi cons, we're basically the cheapest event we have. Support us, and we bring in badges, and we get people's attention. They have a good time. We're basically a weekend-long who can do the craziest stunt contest. Mm-hmm. And they have no reason to not support us. And we generally, we're basically non-for-profit because we don't need to make a profit. The con profits from our existence. So it's a completely different mentality and modality. So I pass off to people who have more expertise on the matter. Yeah.
I mean, my area of expertise as far as that goes is probably better stated in terms of the Geek Initiative, my website, because a lot of people have suggested, wow, you could make it a nonprofit because people will crowdfund you, and they have crowdfunded us. And I'm like, well, I really don't want to do that because I like the option of having this turn into what I do. Like, this is what I love to do. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it should just be like, this nonprofit thing. I still want it to be accountable to, the people that invest their time into it. And so, there's definitely a lot that goes into deciding whether or not you want to go profit, nonprofit, that kind of thing. And, it's something that I think every business or every game owner in this circumstance has to really think about. Who do you owe? That's kind of always a huge thing for me. Like, who are you accountable to? Are you accountable to your readers, in my case, or your players, in the LARP's case? Or is it you're just accountable to yourself? Or are you accountable to your bank account because you need to turn a profit to live off of this? That's, that can really drive the direction of a LARP. The things you do for player retention, it really, really can. And then throwing into that, especially here in the northeastern United States, where are you playing? How much does it cost? What are the requirements to get a hold of those resources? Because that's not an easy game to play.
Yeah. I used, when I was younger, there were high schoolers that went to a game. They wouldn't eat lunch all week. They would save their lunch money so they could go to an event.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Whoa.
Like, it's and like, is that how you want to put food on your table? You know what I mean? Like, that level of commitment, that level of like duping sometimes off of people, or I don't know. And if you do want to have a business, there are so many other better business ideas with way less risk.
That's true.
And way less startup capital. Like all the, like, if you're going to do it right, all the costumes or makeup or renting property, all those things you have to do. Yeah, and I was just going to address that. Also, like, those money-making options to pay to win. Yeah, a little bit of money, you can say, goes to the club for costumes and storage, and, we invest that into the club. So Tara's $5 contribution every month that, it gives back to the club. Yeah. But if you let Tara write me a check for $800, you're not going to swallow the "it's for the good of the club" pill. Okay. But could you make money off it? Yes. And my friends and I have had joking ideas where, your first event's $5, like your first character, but every time you die, it's perm death, and you just pay me $5 more to come back to life, and it's a completely PvP centric game. So it's like, you died. $5 more, and you get back out there.
Welcome to Battle Royale.
Exactly. And my friend Chris and I used to always joke about that whenever we would drink. But it's a social club for me. My fondest LARP memories are games in which are run with an inclusive environment, that are promoting the hobby, developing real life skills, and making friends that have gone on beyond the game. Like Damien, who just logged in over here, he and I were co-workers, but our friendship really blossomed through the shared experiences of going to preparing and attending live action role-playing events. That's where our mettle was tested, and we formed a very strong relationship to where we're like brothers now. And while he has left the games, he's been out of the circuit for a while, our friendship has endured. You know what I mean? Like, I've gotten so many good friends from doing it. So if I was looking at him, you, and other people as just $20 bills that are coming to hang out with me in goofy costumes, I'm not going to have those
that
relationships.
complicates things. That's true. And it rolls into how you said to me before, LARP is like a drug. and some people, this is all Dan, LARP is like a drug. Some people only want to hang out when you're using, but other people that you've met at LARP that become your friends, they'll be with you for the rest of your life, no matter what. But you have to realize, I'm going there, Dan. But you have to realize that there are both kinds of people that you will meet and befriend at the game, and sometimes you don't know which category a person falls into until one of you stops going every month.
Yeah.
Campaign game.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, I have all these acquaintances that are my friends, but it's like, are they really your friends? Don't go for a month. Maybe 2 and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you guys have conversations about anything other than game? No, you're just sounding boards to validate their addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe addiction is a strong word, but I emphasize it to make a point. And it's just you really don't know who your friends really are until you address or become aware of those situations.
Yeah, that's true. And I know for me, like, it's led to some tough situations, but conversely, it's also led, like, realizing who my friends really are, because when stuff happens and people can't game together for whatever reason, like, if you still keep in touch, you still talk about other stuff or play other types of games, then then you know that you're really friends. But it is tough when you just like drift apart because you don't play a game together anymore. It's sad. But I think, the same could probably be said for a lot of different types of hobbies or sports or anything like that, or theater groups or jobs. You're really close to people, and then, one of you goes and does something else, and then you're not so close anymore, and it sucks.
That's not a bad thing.
Yeah, that's life. That's just life. That's true. So,
yep.
But if you're not aware of it, you'll hurt yourself.
That's true. That is really true.
In any relationship, if one person cares more than the other person and there's this disparity, and then you're surprised, you're just going to be let down and destroyed.
That's true. Quite true. You got to know the risks going in, basically. So it is after 10 o'clock. I'm probably going to head out here soon. I am going to stop the recording, but I'm more than happy to leave the room open with you guys as the hosts. But I'm going to head out and get some food. Rick is getting food, and it's making me hungry. So, if anyone else wants to jump in, too, you can also do that. But I'm going to head out and go to sleep. And again, this is hosted by me, Irish Tara, a.k.a. TaraTheBard, a.k.a. Ciara. I run the Geek Initiative. I'm going to put the website URL in the chat again. And great shout out to all the LARPs we've discussed. Let's see if I can get them all. We talked about Seventh Kingdom IGE. We talked about Oblivion LARP, Mystic Realms, Faglen. What am I missing? I'm missing some. Night Realms, we talked about Dystopia Rising. Yes, Nocturne. Shout out to all of them. And head over to geekinitiative.com. You can type in LARP or check the LARP category to read all of my post articles and discussions about live action role playing. Feel free to go ahead and put the URL to all of your favorite LARPs in there. Also, TinaDegenhart.com. Thanks for stopping in, Tina. We love you. And yeah, Shield First Unit. Hoping I can get into that for Dreamation. Crossing my fingers. Really excited about it. Kind of is just hits all the the nerd categories that I love because I love Marvel and I love LARPing. And yeah, anything else you want to add? Go ahead and pop it there in the side. And I hope you guys have a great night.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Indeed. Great to be here. I'll see you next time.
Awesome.
Although my thing seems to have frozen again. Well, guess I'm calling it a night.
Yep.
Have a good one.
We'll schedule another one soon. Thank you guys for joining in, and thanks everybody for interacting and asking questions. Have a great night.